Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council study session for August 3rd, 2026. 30 seconds, and when it turns to red, 30 seconds, and when it turns to red, please go ahead and wrap up your comments. I will do my best not to butcher anybody's names, so I apologize if I do. So first up, we have Nikki Larson and Cheryl Garcia's on deck. Oh, sure, we can pass this.
Vision Zero information that the AT-ATs have put together, and we've been distributing those at various events this summer. My name is, that's the person that we're looking out for when we talk about Vision Zero. This summer, we've also been collecting postcards from residents at the events that we've appeared at, and some of them are to tell us your why and to advocate for more mobility in Wheat Ridge. And we had some with the prompt of Wheat Ridge needs more. And so I wanted to read you just a couple of those. One of them says, Wheat Ridge needs more sidewalks anywhere. And on the back it says, it is sad that local parks do not have sidewalks. Parents with strollers, elderly, disabled, and everyone else deserves a place to walk. And that was from someone named Brian. We have another one, Wheat Ridge needs more protected bike lanes and bike paths, so I can safely walk and bike to work, home, pleasure, for health and happiness. And that was from George G. And this last one says, Wheat Ridge needs more multimodal trails off major arterials, wide for bike. Have told the city that they want it to be safer to get around when walking or rolling in our city. And they would really like the safety improvements made a priority. So I really appreciate and thank you for taking up Vision Zero tonight, and I look forward to hearing this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Garcia, and then Kimberly Cross is on deck.
Good evening. Agenda item, local works budget. My name is Cheryl Garcia, Cheryl with a C, Garcia, Garcia, and I live and work in Wheat Ridge. So first, I'd like to thank all of you for your previous support of Local Works. When I first started volunteering at Local Works, great and involved the citizens of Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Kimberly Cross, and Betty Jo Page is on deck.
My name is Kimberly Cross, C-R-O-S-S, and I live in Wheat Ridge, and I'm speaking on the upcoming tax measure. Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening and thank you for this opportunity to speak. As we all know, our community is facing a critical need. We are urgently required a new city hall and police.
It's a different view altogether. I live on Ingalls in the east side of Wheat Ridge. I'm also on the board of the Wheat Ridge Historical Society, and I'm here to just say a few words about them. I've only been involved with the Historical Society for a couple of years, and what I have learned is that their staff person for History Colorado spoke at the Active Adult Center the other day, and afterwards took a tour with Marta, and she was tickled with our park. She really appreciated it and really liked the mural. We, as a board, we're getting old. We learn slowly, and there's a tremendous amount to learn about historic preservation. Tremendous amount to learn about historic preservation. We need somebody who's got the education behind them to guide us through keeping what we have in good shape and doing anything into the future.
Walk some places, others were a challenge to get to safely. 38th Avenue, Harlan Street, and other streets that provided access to businesses, our kids' schools, or other activities were unsafe enough that sometimes driving was really the only option. And even then, we had to make sure to look out for people walking in the street, riding or rolling a stroller unsteadily on a narrow sidewalk, or biking in a right-of-way that was too narrow for cars and cyclists at the same time. Fortunately, our community has decided that safe, easy access for all modes of transportation are more of a priority, And in the last 24 years, we have seen big improvements in our town's cycling and walking infrastructure. But as you know, more can and must be done. The framework offered by Vision Zero approaches every potential crash or accident as a preventable incident, something that can save lives and make people more confident in being able to enjoy our town as much as possible while they walk, bike, or even.
Up next, we have Charlie Myers and Krista Hollop on deck.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on Vision Zero. My name is Charlie Myers, 3620 Otis Street, District 1. And I've been involved with the AdTats and also Bike Jeffco, both advocacy organizations. I think it's excellent that City of Wheat Ridge is adopting the Vision Zero cause. We have to change the mindset that fatal crashes are inevitable. I'm working with
bike because it's part of my daily mental break and commute. Eric says, I love to bike and walk because I have to. Alyssa says, I love to bike. It clears my mind. It's great exercise, gives me more energy and motivation. Philip says, I love to bike. It brings me peace, joy, and mental clarity! Exclamation point. Brent says, I love to bike for quality family time. And Jeff says, I love
Local Works Board President. I truly support this organization. We have grown so much over the past few years, and I believe that it is a direct result of our staff and our leadership. As a nonprofit organization, we work hard to support the community as a whole, from residents to business owners to visitors. We just truly want to bring everyone together in our city. So all the money that we receive from you guys, from the city, is carefully allocated to the correct place and making Wheat Ridge a better place to live, to work, and enjoy. Whether that is through our
I've been employed there for 20, and I can't remember a time that I haven't worked with the Wheat Ridge police officer. So what a forensic interview is, it's a very specialized interview that a trained professional conducts. That's why I'm here tonight, and we are here, I'm here to request a one-time gift from the city of Wheat Ridge. It's $44,420.
We're going to move on to our first agenda item tonight, which is an update on our regional Vision Zero Safety Action Plan, and we'll go to Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn it right over to Rocky. He's going to introduce our guest who's online.
My name is Rocky McSulka. I'm the engineering manager for Wheat Ridge, as well as the city's representative on the stakeholders committee as part of the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan. I'm here to introduce Christian Branco from Consor, who has been working along with Jefferson County and Lakewood, along with the other municipalities which are part of the project. Christian is one of the leads on the project and has been involved in the analysis and data collection. I'll hand it off to Christian, who will provide a brief presentation on the project and status.
All right, thank you, Rocky. Well, like Rocky said, we have an update for you this evening on the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan that Jefferson County is leading. It's a regional effort, but with participation from a selection of local agencies, including the city of Wheat Ridge. So I'll provide a brief overview of the planning effort. I will discuss our recent work, including the high injury network for the region, and we'll share some key takeaways from that effort. We have some supporting planning initiatives that I'll cover, as well as our upcoming an overview of our upcoming round of community outreach. Like Rock mentioned, the county has partnered with Lakewood and are jointly putting in match dollars for a federal grant that Jefferson County received through the Federal Highway Administration Safe Streets and Roads for All program, and that's funding this planning effort. In addition to the city of Wheat Ridge, Edgewater, Lakeside, Golden, Mountain View, Morrison, and Vol signed a memorandum of understanding with the county that they're participating in the study and offering in-kind staff time contributions on the stakeholder group. So before I dive in, just wanted to give a quick overview of what this Vision Zero Safety Action Plan covers. So as I mentioned, this is a joint effort between a number of different jurisdictions. And as some of the community members who shared comment referenced, the Vision Zero concept focuses on eliminating all fatal and severe injury crashes that take place within the county. And the other focus we have is focusing on vulnerable roadway users, which we define as bicyclists, pedestrians, and motorcyclists. So trying to understand what are the things we can do to really reduce the level of crash incidents that these community members and road users experience, and then to eliminate any vulnerable roadway user crashes that result in death or serious injury. So Vision Zero, for those who aren't familiar, is a planning framework, and it really centers on the idea that while eliminating all crashes that happen on our roadways may be unattainable just due to human error and mistakes happening on our roads, that's something that can be hard to completely control. But what we can do is to make sure that when crashes do occur, the outcomes are not severe. So no one is dying as a result or experiencing an incapacitating injury. We also use the SAFE system approach, which is a 5-component framework that really guides our planning effort and helps ensure that it's holistic. So the different components of the SAFE system are safer people. And so that's the thought that no matter how you travel around the community, whether you drive, walk, bike, use transit, use a mobility device, your needs as a road user really need to be considered. Safer vehicles, that's the concept that when crashes do occur, there's certain technologies that can be deployed on vehicles that can help ensure that a severe outcome doesn't result from that crash. So some really traditional examples are things like seatbelts or airbags. Increasingly, when we look at Vision Zero planning from a local agency standpoint, there's considerations like fleet vehicles, for example. So for instance, if an agency operates large multi-axle trucks, for example, there can be side guards that are installed so that when there's a collision between a truck and a cyclist, the cyclist doesn't get pulled under the truck. So that's kind of the safer vehicles component. Safer speeds is the concept that there's a well researched relationship between the speed vehicles are traveling when they are involved in a collision and then the outcomes. So the lower the speed of vehicles that are involved in a collision, the less severe the outcomes tend to be. Safer roads is kind of designing our roadways with safety in mind. So instead of prioritizing vehicle speeds, throughput, things like that, elevating safety as a design principle. And then post-crash care is the concept of getting crash victims to care as quickly as possible. And the sooner someone who's involved in a crash and sustains an injury can get to care, the better the outcome tends to be. So we initiated this process last year in September, and the county gave themselves a long schedule, knowing that there was going to be many different stakeholders involved amongst the different jurisdictions that are participating. And so to this point, we've engaged in an initial phase of community outreach, and I'll share a quick update on what we learned and kind of who we heard from. And that was last fall and into early 2026. And that was kind of an information gathering effort. On a parallel track, we worked through data analysis. So there was an effort to compile 5 years of crash history for all unincorporated Jefferson County, as well as our partner jurisdictions. And I'll, in a moment, share what we learned for Wheat Ridge specifically. And then we developed a high injury network, which is the subset of roadway segments and intersections where severe injury and fatal crashes are happening at the highest rate during our study period. And we're also looking at a risk-based approach. So analyzing some common characteristics amongst our top crash types that result in deaths or serious injuries, and understanding if there's any specific locations in the county or any sort of systematic issues that are contributing to those outcomes, and then applying some proactive thinking to understanding locations where there might not be a severe crash history today, but there's some underlying conditions that might drive outcomes tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we're getting out ahead of crashes before they occur. We've also initiated working on project development. So we're identifying what we call countermeasures, or essentially recommendations for engineering treatments, as well as programmatic and policy interventions that can help reduce or address the types of crash history and crash outcomes that we've seen in the study area. And then we'll be working closely with stakeholders to refine that recommendations list this fall and prioritize it so that each local agency has a set of recommendations that really make sense for you, for example, for Wheat Ridge. We are drafting the safety action plan, and we've initiated that process this summer, and we'll be doing that initial draft through the fall. At the end of the presentation, I'll share our both stakeholder review and public review schedule. And then we're initiating our next phase of community outreach starting next month. So I'll share a little bit of information about that. And then in the wintertime, in early 2027, we'll work on doing that full public review and then going out to both the county commissioners at Jefferson County as well as local agency partners to present the plan for adoption. We have 3 different stakeholder groups that we're coordinating with. The first is a core group, and that is our smaller stakeholder group that includes one member representative from each of the participating agencies, the partner agencies, we call them. We have a focus group, which also includes representatives from City of Lakewood and Jefferson County agencies and offices that help manage the transportation system in some way, whether it's the police department, public works, first responders, really anyone who's out there sort of involved in managing transportation and is in some way, shape, or form involved in crash response. And then we also have an advisory team, and this is a larger regional committee that includes representatives from member agencies, and then also advocacy groups, multi-jurisdictional groups like DRCOG, for example, and CDOT. So we're able to work with partners across the region to educate them on what's being done through this process, and also to learn from other agencies that are undertaking similar efforts like Adams County. In our first phase of community outreach last year and into early this year, we had a survey that had a pretty robust response of about 524 folks who participated. We also had an interactive map online where individuals were able to visit the map and show us specific locations where they might feel unsafe walking or biking. And we had over 1,300 community members give us input that way. And that's been really beneficial for helping us understand specific locations where county residents and visitors have transportation safety concerns. We've actually made that map available online, and it's the results are searchable and downloadable, so you can take a look at specific input that's been provided within Wheat Ridge. So some member agencies have found that a full resource. And then we did kind of look at who are the different road users we heard from, and it broke down fairly evenly across folks who use different modes. So folks, about 38% of respondents indicated biking and rolling concerns, 30% indicated some concerns about specific locations where driving feels unsafe or where they experience near misses, and then 28% were pedestrian related concerns. So that gave us a good kind of cross-section of different transportation safety concerns as they relate to different travel modes. And then we received over 1,100 pins within unincorporated Jefferson County. So a lot of feedback from those community members. Around 650 from Lakewood, and then when we look at Wheat Ridge, there was about 140 community members who left pins on specific locations within the city. So that information's really helped inform our analysis and helped with developing recommendations. Looking at the crash history, we evaluated the period of 2020 to 2024. And this is what we're showing here is a overall crash history for Wheat Ridge. As you can see, in 2020, there was a lower overall number of crashes, and that's fairly common just due to COVID that year and lower overall travel volumes. And then when we look at the bottom of the bar chart, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but we are showing the number of crashes resulting in death or serious injury. Really what we have seen both in Wheat Ridge and across some of the other partner agencies is that the number of those severe crashes has stayed relatively stable throughout our study period. And that's something that really underscores the importance and value of this effort. Just to quickly highlight the two other line graphs that you see on the chart, we looked at both on-system and off-system crashes. On-system crashes refer to crashes that have taken place on state highways. Off-system are crashes that have taken place on locally managed roadways. So generally speaking, across the full study area, crashes are happening on CDOT facilities at a higher rate. We do evaluate those because in many instances, there's a significant level of either maintenance responsibility or at least some ability to partner with CDOT improvements on state highways that serve local agencies. So we try to do that deep level of analysis to help set member jurisdictions up to work with CDOT on improvements, even if CDOT's maintaining the right of way. We did exclude I-70, for example, so limited access highways that are completely overseen by CDOT. We didn't include those crashes in our analysis in order not to skew the numbers. So when we look at those severe crashes, we're looking at crashes that have taken place within roadways and corridors that either Wheat Ridge manages or does so in partnership with CDOT. And then looking at this is the total crash history map for Wheat Ridge. So as you can see, there are a number of locations with a higher concentration of severe and fatal crashes. And these are oftentimes at interchanges or at major intersections. And for our high injury network, looking countywide, we analyzed the segments of roadways and specific intersections where those severe crashes are happening at the highest rates. We divide the county into two what we call context areas. So the Plains is the kind of more developed section of Jefferson County, and that's where there's a higher overall number of crashes. There's just higher traffic volumes. And the Plains is generally everything east of C-470. So in the Plains, the top 24% of intersections and 9% of segment miles encompass half of all injury crashes and 2/3 of all KSI or death and serious injury crashes. And in the mountains area, the top 4% of intersections and 26% of segment miles encompass 69% of injury crashes and 85% of all KSI crashes. So through the high injury network, what we've been able to do is really distill down to the set of roadways and intersections where those crashes are happening at the highest rates. And then we have also developed special or tailored thresholds to each of the member jurisdictions. So the high injury network for Wheat Ridge, for example, is based on your local crash history and not the countywide history. meaning that it's not skewed towards communities that have higher crash histories, like Lakewood, for example. So we have not publicly published high injury network since it was just recently finalized, but we do have a link available online, and this should be available to you through your packet for this study session. And we're happy to help walk through if any council members have any follow-up questions after this presentation. Counselor is available to help navigate these resources. But yeah, if you would like to access the map online, you're welcome to do so, and you can filter down to the Wheat Ridge High Injury Network to study a little bit closer. As I mentioned, we'd have 3 supporting planning initiatives. Because this effort is so data-driven and so analysis-heavy, we want to make sure that we're thinking very holistically. So there's three additional components that are a little bit more research-based and qualitative in nature. The first is a policy review. So we're working with each member agency to collect things like design standards, local plans, ordinances, anything that has a relationship to transportation safety. And we're reviewing those and making recommendations for any potential adjustments to help elevate safety as a policy priority in those documents. We developed a non-discriminatory plan, which is essentially an index looking at where community members who are disproportionately impacted by transportation safety issues and also more likely to be impacted due to demographic factors, which can include, there's a lot of relationships between, for example, household vehicle ownership and active transportation use. And then since active transportation users are disproportionately impacted by severe crashes, that's a relationship that we're trying to understand a little bit more. So one of the things that the county has committed to through their agreement with the Federal Highway Administration is to center at least 40% of the plan, location-specific plan recommendations within communities that are disproportionately impacted. And so the non-discriminatory plan has helped us identify those locations throughout the county. And then we're also conducting a best economic and environmental practices review. And that's an effort to evaluate our crash history in the county and in Wheat Ridge relative to severe weather events to understand if there's a historical pattern or relationship between when severe weather occurs and whether severe crashes happen as a result at higher rates. And if so, what are some of the things the county and local agencies can consider doing to be a little bit more resilient in that regard and to be better prepared when severe weather does occur. The findings from these supporting planning initiatives are going to help inform prioritization of the Vision Zero plan projects. And then lastly, I'll just touch on our upcoming outreach and draft plan development schedule. We are launching community outreach in just a few weeks. Our next phase will be happening over the month of September. We'll have a community survey that will be hosted as part of our asynchronous open house online, and that's going to be a self-paced website that folks can visit and walk through, and it's going to contain information about all the work that's been done to date. So it's going to be used as a tool to educate the general public on our high injury network, our high risk network, key findings from crash history analysis, and then there's going to be a companion survey that's shown on the side of the screen so folks can take the survey and respond to questions kind of as they take in the information. We're going to have a set of 3 different pop-up events throughout the county, and we are making a final determination on where those events are going to be taking place. So please stay tuned. We have been working with the core group members to help promote our effort, and that includes those pop-up events. So we will be working with the community development team to cross-promote the effort on Wheat Ridge's social media platforms. And lastly, we're going to have a series of live Q&A sessions with project teams. So those will be office hours style kind of conversations for anyone who doesn't necessarily want to do the online open house. You'd be able to join a virtual meeting with the project team and ask questions about the planning process and learn a little bit about what's been done to date. And for next steps, we've got our project development and prioritization that we're working through the summer and into the early fall. And I will be engaging the stakeholders on that very soon. Draft plan is underway, and I'll touch on the review schedule momentarily. We'll be doing the outreach activities that I just covered, and then we'll also be going back out for another round of updates to the Jefferson County Planning Commission as well as the county commissioners in about 2 weeks. Then before I close out, just want to quickly share our draft plan review schedule so you're aware and so you can know what's kind of coming down the pike. We're working on working with our project management team to do an initial round of review, and then that'll be tentatively in the month of November. And then we're going to be working with stakeholders, including Wheat Ridge, to do that to help with that initial review. So we'll make sure that before we go out to the public, the local stakeholders who are participating have had a chance to thoroughly review the plan and ask questions, and the consultant team will have an opportunity to make some revisions. We'll be doing a public review in early 2027. I know that seems really far away, but we want to make sure that we don't put anything out over the holiday period, since it's a little bit hard to get good input during that time. So in January, we'll be posting the plan for a 30-day period, and we'll be collecting comments from the public. And then once that final draft is prepared, we will be going out to both county commissioners and local agency councils and commissions to present on the plan and follow local adoption processes, which differ a little bit between our different member agencies. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. And do we have questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Rocky, for your involvement representing the city and the technical side. And thank you, Christian, for presenting to us tonight. This is something that's really important and valuable to me, someone who rides their bike around town all the time. I am very aware of where I feel safe and where I don't. I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit about when this is all said and done.
Come recommended actions, so it'll be trying to find ways to implement all those actions. That's fairly simple from there.
And I'm getting, this is a little bit of a leading question since I sat in the presentation at the Jeff Tag meeting a couple of weeks ago, but does it include like specific recommendations, like these intersections and these specific corridors have been like identified through data as being, you know, specifically dangerous, and here are things that can be done to improve those conditions?
I think that's my understanding. I think Christian may be able to better answer
I
it.
can-
They are still framing it right now, so I think it might be hard for them to.
I'm just looking at Rocky because he's across the table from
yeah,
me, so
yeah.
but it's for you as well, Christian.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to speak to that. The short answer is yes, there will be very targeted recommendations around corridors and intersections where, through our high injury network analysis, we've determined that severe crashes are happening at the highest rates. Right now, what we're doing is working on developing the set of countermeasures that have proven efficacy for reducing the incidence of different crash types that result in death or serious injury. So, for example, if there's a high rate of approach turn crashes at a certain intersection that are resulting in severe outcomes, an approach turn is when a vehicle is making a left turn, for example, on an oncoming vehicle collides with a turning vehicle. Then we see a very well-established pattern of that type of crash occurring in a certain location. Then we'll look at sort of what's going on at that intersection and evaluate whether it's perhaps a signal timing issue, if it's signalized, if there's something to do with the geometry of that intersection, or perhaps the lane configuration that might be contributing to the outcome, looking at sight distance issues. And then there's a set of proven countermeasures that we evaluate and see if they make sense or if they would be kind of applicable or appropriate at that location. So we will go through and do that for each of the recommendations for your community. And then Wheat Ridge will be able to use that plan to pursue implementation funding, which has been made available through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program for the last few federal fiscal years, and we are a little bit unsure of what the future looks like with the federal reauthorization, but there is
specific to each municipality, but that it's a regional approach as well, because roadways don't stop at city boundaries necessarily. So thank you for the approach and thank you for the work.
Thank you. Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. I really happy to go through this presentation. Thank you for the thorough presentation. I actually was introduced to Vision Zero when I was, or after adopting, sorry.
I'm happy to jump in. I'd say that one thing that really we tend to see pretty often is that as part of the process of adopting Vision Zero, what a lot of communities do is make a commitment to transparency around outcomes and performance tracking as it relates to transportation safety. So communities will publish a dashboard, for example, showing what crash statistics look like year to date, and so that community members can see, hey, we committed to X% reduction of severe crashes by this date, and with a kind of eventual targeted Vision Zero, but we're trending, we're not trending in the right direction. So it kind of helps local agencies that have made that commitment partner with the community to be transparent about we're making an investment in safety, we're taking this on, but the outcomes aren't quite where we want them to be, so we're going to continue looking at opportunities to make improvements. I would say a few other things that just top of mind. I think a lot of Vision Zero communities, and this of course completely depends on state statute for that, where that jurisdiction is located and what's permissible or allowable. But communities that have adopted Vision Zero in states where automated speed enforcement is permitted tend to start to look at that as a traffic calming tool and a speed management tool, because it has proven to be quite effective. So Vision Zero communities tend to lean into that new technology a little bit more. And then I think Denver is a great example of a Vision Zero city that identified bicycle and pedestrian involved crashes as a significant concern, and that's one of the reasons that Denver has invested in building out a more robust on-street bicycle network. So looking at opportunities to protect intersections a little bit more and make sure that there's more context-sensitive design for active transportation users on Denver's roadways, with the intended outcome of making it safer to walk or bike, and then hopefully reducing crashes involving those road users. So I think those are a few examples. That there's certainly more.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilor Larson.
And thank you, Mayor. And I find this to be very interesting, to the point where this process has arrived in Wheat Ridge and as part of Jefferson County, and the cooperation that we're seeing across the county. And as somebody that does not have a bicycle but has a motorcycle, I'm very concerned about serious accidents on our busiest streets. But I really don't want to be a contrarian, but there are some issues that tend to push back on the sort of idealistic concepts that things like Vision Zero have. And as we go forward, because we don't really know what this is going to look like and how it's going to impact in terms of physical changes in Wheat Ridge to our streets, that there are, we're aware of as we go forward that there's a very real potential for increasing travel times for commuters. There could be the tendency of people to feel like, as they're transiting through Wheat Ridge, and we have a lot of those, that they are intentionally being slowed down, so they maybe move on to public transport or take a different route. And then there's some concern that's been raised about when you slow traffic down generally, you will find that in emergency response, some of the emergency response vehicles are delayed in getting to the scene. There are very high implementation costs compared to some other projects. There are obviously business impacts for people that have long commutes or their commutes are extended. And then I do believe that when we incorporate items like speed cameras and this sort of enforcement issues that are already in place, there can be an impact. So again, I'm going to reserve judgment on any specific projects that this Vision Zero will bring to Wheat Ridge until we see what they actually look like. But I would advise that we keep some of these things in mind as the plan is developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor. Less of a question and more of a comment, but I would invite Rocky and Christian to comment on it if they have thoughts here. I'm becoming more of a fan of heat maps than I ever realized I could be. So I really like the inclusion of the heat maps in here that help me understand a bit better. And I can't help but notice that there's a little bit of extra heat in District 4. So thinking about our area and thinking about the neighborhood that I live in, which is on the north side of I-70, we think a lot about the Tabor Bridge, which I see as a spot on the heat map here as well. And, thinking about Tabor and 44th and the potential for upgrades there because of the access issues that are existing. I hear increasingly frequently from the young families, but my neighbors just in general, about a desire to be able to cross that bridge safely and get to the other side, to get to the Clear Creek Trail in general from our end of it. And then, of course, there's plenty of people, I think, who may not be the most ready participants of the outreach that you guys might be doing, who are utilizing it almost daily already anyway in that area. I see quite a few on my commute, which is across the Tabor Bridge every single morning. So thank you for the thorough presentation. I think this work is very worthy of the extended attention that we're giving it right now, and I'm satisfied to see that the heat map is agreeing with what the residents in my neighborhood on the north side of I-70 are thinking.
Councilor, go ahead, Rock.
I was going to just quick update. So Public Works is working on a project to design, as you know, the 44th and Tabor area, so we get something all the way to Clear Creek from that neighborhood. So I think it'll be a big improvement. It will take some years and some funding, but it's coming. So
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. Councilor Quinn.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the presentation. It reminds me a lot of safety program at work I was a part of, where we kind of transformed from a behavioral-based program to a systems-based program, removing hazards. I've seen a lot of the same language there, and I'm excited to see the final product of this. It's a nice, long-range plan and has some good vision if it's real similar to the systems-based safety programs that we had. You don't see results tomorrow, but you see them 5-10 years down the road, and excited to see that. So thanks for everything.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holting.
Thanks. I just want to share an observation. So similar to Councilor Okada's comment, I also love a good heat map. And that's going to be our secret club for councilors after council, the heat map club. But I think one of the things that really stands out to me is that some of the biggest and reddest and throbbiest dots on this heat map are really centered around intersections. And those are places that are not safe for anyone going through them. And so I think the attention that this will bring to improving safety at intersections, from the bike ped perspective, I mean, a lot of times we'll invest in facilities that get us to the intersection, but don't get us through the intersection. And the intersection is where we have, the most sort of like uncontrolled, somewhat, like controlled chaos, but not as controlled as throughput. So I'm excited to see what kind of recommendations come forward for us to look at improving intersection safety. I know we just rolled out some red light enforcement cameras at 44th and Kipling. So we're taking some proactive measures that are depending on the Vision Zero recommendations coming to us. But in general, I mean, if we can get our intersections correct, I think we're going to address a huge portion of our data-driven where we know there's problems. And then I think the second order that comes from this is recognizing that there's a lot of places where people just aren't traveling because they don't proactively feel safe. So I think that will help us know where do we need to make the non-existing investments so that the corridors feel safe for people. So I think this is really helpful to have data-driven direction for us. We certainly have some of our own from our own community. But as Councilor Member Wood said, like this regional approach to it really ensures that people are getting to Wheat Ridge safely. We have a whole bunch of great amenities that people should feel safe reaching, whether they're on a motorcycle or riding a bike or walking. So anyway, I appreciate that. And I'm really excited to see what kind of intersection recommendations come out because those are sketchy. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilors, any other questions or comments? Excellent. Well, we will thank both of you for your hard work on this, and this is a big project and an important one, so thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 2, and we'll go to Mr. Goff, but we'll start if the members of the Carnation Festival Committee want to come on up and take a seat at the table here.
Thank you, Mayor. Mary Ann is getting, I guess they don't have a presentation, but I'll do a quick introduction. So tonight we're here presenting the 2027 outside agency budget request as part of developing the proposed 27 budget. We're asking council tonight for direction on funding requests from 5 outside organizations. Your feedback will help staff determine the appropriate funding levels while we're balancing these requests with other city priorities. As you know, the city has a longstanding practice of partnering with nonprofits, business organizations, community serving groups to support economic development, public safety, human resources, community events, and overall quality of life in Wheat Ridge. We have historically provided annual funding to the Carnation Festival Committee, also Local Works, and the Wheat Ridge Historical Society through the budget. The Wheat Ridge Chamber did submit a request in 25, which council did not approve. They are asking for funding for 27, and then Ralston House is also a new request this year. As a reminder, council approved funding in this year's budget for several organizations, which included $45,000 for the Wheat Ridge Business District, $100,000 for Carnation Festival Committee, $326,200 for Local Works, plus they did receive an additional $75,000 for the Wadsworth Business Recovery Grant Program. For next year, we've received 5 requests. Carnation Festival is requesting $125,000. Local Works is requesting $327,200 plus an additional $50,000 for a business grant program. Wheat Ridge Chamber is requesting $60,000. Ralston House is requesting $44,240. And the Wheat Ridge Historical Society is requesting with new staffing $100,780. In addition to these requests, the city also maintains annual investments, which I've listed in your memo, of numerous programs, regional partnerships, sponsorships, and dues that reflect our ongoing commitment to the community well-being. So tonight, staff is seeking council's direction on these 5 requests so we can incorporate those into the budget. With that, I'll turn it over to Joey for Carnation Festival. I'll pull your mic.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. As you know, we're 5 days away from the festival, and I hope you all can make it this weekend. I just wanted to give an update, which will, also come into account for budget. We are going to cancel our fireworks this year. We just didn't think waiting any longer would make sense, and we figured it was just a better decision to call it a no than wait and cancel it Thursday or Friday. So, and in our budget, you see that is $25,000, but we will either get that back or just leave it in there for next year, or let the company keep it for next year. That way they won't raise the price. So, we are 501c3 ourselves, and we've been, our current committee has been together for a lot of years, maybe 16 years. And I've run it all that time, and through that time, it's gotten bigger and bigger, and in my opinion, better and better. But, generally, the way we really gauge it is who we engage during it. We have about 35,000 guests through the week. We actually use a software that frighteningly counts cell phones in the park and also tells us where they go afterwards. So we use that for marketing and sponsorships and stuff like that. We have about 18 other nonprofits that benefit from the festival. The Kiwanis Club, the Rotary, the Optimists sell the beer and wine, and we have, I don't know how many groups from the high school that come down and help us and benefit, and we pay them. They're able to raise a little bit of money for each organization. And, every year we seem to pick one or two more groups up, and it's really nice to see them engage in the chaos that happens the week before. And we were, up until 2020, we got 125,000 for quite a few years. 2020 came and changed the whole wide world, and we received 50 from you early on in the year. And then when we realized that nothing was going to happen, the next year we asked for 100, and we would spread that 50,000 out in addition to the 100 for as long as we could. A couple of years ago, we did ask for 125. We did get 100, and we can make it work. There's just a couple of new things we always want to try, this or that. We have kind of burned through our reserve of that 50,000 through the years, and we, again, asking for 125,000 this year. That's about it. I just kind of am here to answer questions and beg for money as usual. So.
Councilor Larson.
And thank you, Mayor, and thanks for coming by, Joe. I appreciate you letting us know about fireworks tonight, and that the money would probably be rolled over to next year. Just want to throw out an idea, though, and I know that given the fact that the drought that we're experiencing right now could go on to next year, have you guys ever considered something like an alternative, like a drone show or something, or would that be too expensive, or something like that that doesn't involve fireworks?
Yeah, fireworks is definitely probably our biggest draw. And we've looked at drone shows, and they are about 5 times the price. So it's about 50,000 per night. And that, it's been a couple of years since I've checked. I'm sure with technology and things, and maybe some more companies coming on board around town, it might be a little cheaper, but, as a whole, it's 3 to 5 times more expensive. So, yes, it's something that we kind of look at every once in a while. And, after two years ago, we had to cancel them. And we did look, and it was shockingly expensive. But you just don't get the bang for the buck that fireworks bring. So, yeah, we'll continue to look, and we'll update you and stuff. It's just I'd hate to spend basically the entire budget of what the city gives us for a drone show,
No, and I can appreciate that. It's just, again, this persistent lack of rainfall, I guess, and how it has, obviously not just Wheat Ridge, but all over, there are changes to these sorts of events. But you have my compliments, because you guys do a good job every year, and I certainly look forward to this year's show and certainly the parade, because as far as I know, as far as I can tell, and I know this for a fact, every other city around here is jealous of our event.
If I could add too, if I just listed all the other things we did besides fireworks, fireworks are great. I love fireworks, but there's, 100 other things going on. The music is still, we've worked with the bands, they're all going to play a little bit longer, so we get a little bit more music. Everything that's going on, the carnival, the vendors, everybody is coming, nothing else. Everyone that's heard we're not having fireworks, nobody has said, oh, I'm not coming. It's still going to be a great weekend. I mean, we do the absolute best we can for everybody we can, so, yeah.
Thanks, Joe. We'll see you there.
Good, thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Holting?
Thanks for coming in tonight. I have a couple of questions just about the budget. First, I just want to clarify that we're looking at the 2027 budget because it says 2025 on it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
I probably just didn't change the date.
All right. And then you mentioned in your opening comments an interest in rebuilding some reserves, but I don't actually see the reserves mentioned anywhere in the budget. So can you help me make the connection between the intention on building reserves and how this budget would actually support that?
We don't have like a board policy for reserves. We just sort of hope that we have some reserves at the end of the year. With the size of everything that we've had, we don't have a policy. We don't have a X amount of reserve. We just like to make sure that we would like to build a reserve of, maybe 10 to 12%, just in case. But, we've had, let's see, in like 23, we had just a huge crowd. After COVID, the crowds were just huge. And we did make a decent amount of money off of our carnival. It was sort of a strange windfall. We don't really know why it was so much. And we made about 18,000, and so we were able to kind of add that to our coffers for the next year and then stretch that out over the last few years. Yeah, right now we're sort of in a, spend what we get kind of situation.
All right. And then you just mentioned the carnival. I'm not actually seeing carnival expenses or revenue in this budget. Where does that show up?
There is no expense for the carnival because they charge and then they give us some money if they hit a certain number.
Okay.
And in 22, we didn't have a carnival. Our carnival we had used for years didn't show up. It might have been 23.
I think that was 23. That's probably why you made so much money that year.
And then, so what we did was we just rented a bunch of smaller manual rides and jumping castles. We had an obstacle course. I don't know if you remember this year. It was, we sold tickets ourselves. And so we were able to make some money on that. The next year, we had a new carnival that had promised us a little more money than they really made, and they did accommodate. They did what they said. But then they came back last year and they were like, we just can't really pay that much. So we do, we always made $1,500 to, $1,800 a year. I think we twisted their arm last year for like $2,300. So I'm hoping for $2,300 to $2,500 we make off of the carnival.
All right. But that's not in the budget. That's
I didn't
just,
see that in here, huh?
Okay. And then I think the last thing I want to just ask about is do you reflect any of the in-kind aspects of the budget? So any services that are donated or that kind of like flow through, are there any?
Other than, city overtime and stuff like that, which we generally don't know what that number is. No, we don't really have any kind of in-kind. I mean, that's all probably internal with the park and the public works and the police and every department, I think, is kind of involved in all of that, so.
Okay, I think that's it for questions. I guess the one thing I know this is not going to be popular with some people, but, you know, to Councilmember Larson's point, one of the things we've heard a lot during the Engage Wheat Ridge Month and outside of that is just people's concern about fire safety. And I know that when we do the fireworks show that we have the fire department there and they're monitoring it. But we also hear from a lot of neighbors' concerns around, you know, the noise impact on pets and other, you know, neighbors who aren't as comfortable with it. So I'm hesitant to be supportive of the fireworks, in part just because of the impact and the concern around how flammable we are this year. And I know it's why we canceled it, but when we're canceling it every other year, I just wonder, you know, if we're still pulling in a lot of people to, I think our bands, like the music show is, to me, what is amazing. I can hear it from my house and it's like 2 days of free concerts. It's amazing. I just wonder if there's a way for us to sort of redirect some of that, you know, big finale draw through some of the things we're already investing in with the band infrastructure and like bringing in headliners around that and not bringing in something that, you know, brings in concerns and real impacts to, you know, it's my neighborhood abuts against it as some of the other council members in here. So those are my thoughts. I love the Carnation Festival. I came to it long before I lived here. And now that my son has grown, I'm kind of bummed because we don't go do the carnival rides anymore. He's too cool for that. But I do appreciate all the work that goes in. And I think our parade is really a very special part of our community. So thanks for all of your work on that.
Thanks.
Councilor Ohm.
Thanks, Joe, for everything you do. And it's, you know, that time of year. And I think, you know, to come forward to council and have a discussion, it's definitely courageous. I'm not here to, the only question I have is on, I know a couple years ago, when fireworks were mentioned, there was like 2 nights, and off the top of my head, I want to say that total was like 50. And so is this 25? Was this originally intended for like 2 nights or just the one?
No, it's been 25 for a lot of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
My only comment would be, maybe there's a middle ground, not necessarily this year, but in the future of just having one night of the fireworks instead of the 2. And maybe that's a little bit of a compromise for the neighbors instead of going away with all of it, but just have the one night. Might be something to consider. But I've looked at the overall the budget and it seems pretty consistent for a long, long time. It really hasn't changed much. And I'm sure expenses have probably gone up on everything else. So really appreciate everything you do and everybody that volunteers. It's a lot of work. And yes, people are very jealous in other communities about what we have. So thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Joe, for being here and for this presentation. Just really quick, you had mentioned, and maybe I made this up, but did you say that you're thinking like in the next few years of bringing some new things to the Carnation Festival?
Well, we every year we try to start looking for something new, you know, and it's just, it really is a matter of everything just sort of ratchets up all the costs and everything. So it's kind of what you know, we want to save up some money, look for a new, you know, we had the circus for a lot of years. And we had looked a lot of times on something to replace kind of what we called, you know, the main attraction. But we never really found a replacement for something like that. And, you know, we look, you know, every year, the fireworks come up every year, you know, and I know there's always complaints, but it really is the biggest draw we have. It really is. But not to say everything else isn't great. We get a great crowd anyway, you know. But I couldn't name one specific thing that we're looking at, attractions and stuff like that, but generally, they're very expensive. Everything that we've looked at else is 70 to 80 to $100,000. And, you know, with costs going up, I mean, some of these are really higher than they are as I'm looking at them now, as I'm going through stuff this week. I'm like, oh, we're over, you know, 10% here and, you know, 15% here. So, I mean, we're always up for ideas, but, you know, it really kind of comes on real fast. You're kind of limited by a lot of things down there too, you know, so yes, we would love ideas.
Sure.
We meet once a month if anybody wants to join us.
Well, thank you for that. I understand, and this is something that is so unique to Wheat Ridge and what another thing that makes Wheat Ridge super special. I appreciate the abundance of caution that you probably used and thought through immensely about the fireworks. I know that that's a big concern, just with such a high fire danger and all of the things that go with that. So I do have another question, but it revolves around our mayor's reception. And so I don't know, Mayor, if you could answer, but I'm curious about the venue change for the mayor's reception this year. And just thinking about District 1 and Richard's Heart Estate and how special it is. Maybe it's just, if you wanted to share why we chose that.
Just be kind of the same reason I'm moving around the coffee with the mayors, just a opportunity to spotlight some of the different places that we have in Wheat Ridge.
Sure.
So this year will be with Green, next year maybe Richard's Heart again. That little park at the Lookout looked pretty awesome. Be a really fun place to have it. So we just like to move around the city and
Shake it up.
check it out.
I like
Yeah.
it. I like it. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much.
Counselor Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Joe, for coming in. And are you trying to tell us that the all-you-can-eat spaghetti dinner did not draw the most people?
Well, the spaghetti dinner brings a lot of people. I mean, actually, that's what we were working on all day. That's why I look so great. I've been just unloading trailers with a couple of the firefighter volunteers today, so.
Just giving you a hard time. I think you guys do a great job. I know it's thankless, and I know going the last several years, the bands are over the top.
Thanks. Any other questions? Are you guys doing the VIP tent again this year?
Yes.
Do we, I know we need to move it forward to the budget discussion. Do we want to have a consensus to move forward today, or do we want to just move the entire discussion forward?
That's up to you guys. We can, if you want to consider this, we have a few more council meetings before we need to have a final answer, so we can come back at a future study session. Or if you have a decision tonight, we can do that as well, but it's up to you.
I'd like to propose, given the number of presentations and that we have a big discussion following this, that we get through the presentations and that we can bring it back to a future study session to talk about the packages as a whole.
Okay, we'll say any objections on that? Excellent. Councilor Larson?
Yeah, so I understand here, Mayor, we're not going to decide on or ask for a consensus on this item or any of the items tonight.
Right, we won't ask for consensus on a dollar amount on any of these tonight. We'll move the discussion forward to another study session where we can.
It's strictly informational.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I know you got a busy week. Appreciate it.
Everybody see Friday? And Saturday, and Sunday.
And Thursday.
And Thursday.
Yeah, thank you very much. Up next, we have Local Works. Come on down.
Good evening. I'm sorry I sound like this, so everyone just bear with me, please. And I hope that my voice is back to normal when you all approve this. So tonight we're here to request our 2027 budget. First and foremost, I just want to thank City Council and Mayor Stites for having us. I want to thank each city council member and Mayor Stites that I sat down with over coffee or lunch to talk about our budget request. Your support for Local Works is key to our success, but then Local Works, I believe, is key to the success of the city of Wheat Ridge and all that we've seen. I wanted to start with some pictures because we can talk about data all night long. We can talk about the actual numerical impact that Local Works has on the community. But what's hard to put into numbers is what these pictures show. These pictures show joy. These pictures show community. These pictures show happy dogs and happy kids and happy people. And Local Works is that feeding connection in the Wheat Ridge community that you cannot find anywhere else. And the Local Works is truly what makes Wheat Ridge special. So tonight, we'll go over the use of our 2026 funds that you granted us. We will go over the 2027 request. And then finally, I'll also just go over a general financial standing of Local Works and where we are headed. So 2026 was a big year for Local Works. Ridgefest was amazing this year at the Green. We welcomed over 2,900 attendees. We had 45 vendors, 30 artists, 3 breweries, 2 cornhole winners, and 1 winery. Live Local, we've had average, we give 10 Live Local events a year, around 1,500 residents impacted, and that also includes 10 businesses. So every Live Local features a different business and then features a different business owner that then helps produce one-on-one relationships with people in Wheat Ridge, providing a nice ecosystem for the local Wheat Ridge economy. The business block party this year was another record breaker. We brought it back to Gold's Marketplace, and over 2,000 people attended. And Esther's over at Gold's Marketplace, which has been open for over 2.5 years, reported their best day in sales due to the Local Works business block party program. Local Works does much more than just events and bringing people together. We also create and help create the next leaders of our city. So we are in several civic engagement worlds between Wheat Ridge 101 and Wheat Ridge 102. And we are also now being more of a concierge service to business owners and residents who are interested in civic engagement in a one-on-one type of relationship. And so a business can now reach out and say, I don't know how to get involved in Wheat Ridge, and Local Works pieces all of the great organizations together, sits down with that business and then says, this is how you get involved. As far as our grants and neighborhood work, we are in the midst of our current TLC cleanup era. This year, we're accepting paint, tires, and metal at all TLC Cleanup Day events. This is new this year, thanks to your approved budget from last year. And we are offering electronics recycling again in September. This will be the second time that we do that, and that is completely free to Wheat Ridge residents. So typically, there is a small entrance fee when you see other communities do electronics recycling, and this is completely free for Wheat Ridge residents. For Block Party grants, we will give out 15 grants this year. And as a part of our financial journey, which I've weaved into this presentation, Local Works has been diversifying our funds quite drastically over the last 4 years to make up our revenue mix. And we just received word from Colorado Gives Foundation that we're receiving a large grant. Part of the budget was approved for $20,000 to support our business block party grants. So on top of what we're requesting from the city of Wheat Ridge, just know that the Colorado Gives Foundation is also supporting $20,000 of that to double the amount of grants that we give due to the data that's been shown of people feeling socially connected and feeling like they have a place in the community after a neighborhood block party. We have our block party library, which opened just under 2 years ago. We've already had 800 items reserved in that library, and this year alone, we've had 73 reservations. And this is, again, a free resource to residents. So the block party library includes tables, tents, chairs, bubble machine, inflatable movie screen, cooler, extension cords, excuse me, really everything under the sun that you can think of is in that block party library, and it's treated like a library. You walk in, you take your stuff, you return it. And then finally, our corridor development work. So a lot of the touch points that we have inside of local Wheat Ridge businesses and local business corridors is not necessarily physically seen, but this year was a different side of that coin, and because of your budget request, we were actually able to make some physical improvements that you should be able to see. So Ridge at 38 received all new flagpoles and went through a little bit of a rebrand to ridgeat38.org, including launching a new website that now has an interactive map that you can say, I would like a cup of coffee, or I would like to grab a burrito, and it will show you all the places on 38th Avenue that you can go. It will also tell you like specific parking if you're interested in like, is there good parking? Should I walk? Should I bike? And then phase 2 of Explore 44 has also finished. So Explore 44, phase 1 in our 2025 budget to you focused on the west side of 44th Avenue past Wadsworth, so from Wadsworth to Kipling. Phase 2 has focused on the east side of Wadsworth, back towards Sheridan. And there is now a permanent sign structure at Hopper Hollow Park, which is pictured here, showing the Explore 44 Corridor Unity brand. And then the 2 signs that you see in those bottom tiers, those are interchangeable. So there is one slot for the city to be promoting events or anything else that they may want to. And then that 3rd slot is actually for 44th Avenue businesses at no cost to them to promote themselves. So Vantage Salon was the first that we've promoted. This will be promoted on a quarterly basis through a lottery system. So all 44th Avenue businesses have been contacted, and they will be able to be eligible for the lottery, and this will be changed out per quarter. So Local Works, via our budget request to you for business corridors, part of that budget line item covers the design costs and the print costs to change out those signs for the 44th Avenue businesses. When we think about the makerspace, so in 2026, you approved $57,500 to support our general operations for Clear Creek Makerspace. And when we think about just the numbers of impact, it's quite astonishing to see what Clear Creek Makerspace has been able to do. Since opening, we've welcomed 64,000 people through the door. We have impacted 4,200 people through a specific workshop, class, or event. 7 businesses have launched, and 5 licenses have been filed in Wheat Ridge for those businesses. Our next phase is going to be the Creative Commons expansion. You see our prototype there. So we have 3 entrepreneurial tenants that are working inside of that studio space, probably right now, at Clear Creek Makerspace. The Creative Commons expansion is a part of a larger plan to provide attainable, rentable studio space for local artisans and entrepreneurs to continue their work that they're doing inside of the makerspace into then the studio. And these will be retrofitted shipping containers. This is a part of a much bigger vision that you all are probably very aware of in the city plan when it comes to new ways for commercial businesses to expand. And so we will be the pilot project of if and how these shipping containers can be retrofitted and then expanded in this way for an actual code change. That project is anticipated to cost $325,000. In this budget request, we are not requesting any funds from the city of Wheat Ridge to support the expansion project. In 2026, you approved a supplemental budget request to help with our architectural fees at $35,000. So thank you. I actually talked to our architect today. And so just know that what is asked for in the 2027 budget is the general operations, and we're just telling the story of here of how your support of general operations gets us to here. Local Works took on quite a bit of grant making in 2026. So the Wadsworth Recovery Grant, there was 2 rounds of funding. Over $117,000 was given, and 19 local businesses were supported on the Wadsworth corridor. The Wadsworth Recovery Grant supported projects anywhere from new signage to new website designs to new equipment in order for Wadsworth businesses to feel like they have recovered after the project. This is just a synopsis of our 2026 spending. This was also very detailed in your memo, so if there's specific questions, we can of course come back to that at the end. I do want to highlight that if we were to look at this 5 years ago, it would not be the equal pie that you see today. We have really figured out the best way to operate in as many places as possible, as nimbly as possible, and so that's what this shows. There was very clear council direction that came in 2022 that we've been working diligently towards to understand how Local Works can be reinvesting in ourselves. So I am pleased to inform you that since that conversation, we have spent down $625,000 of our reserves. At this time in our reserves, we have about a year left of operating reserve, which is best practice for a nonprofit to hold on to, because you just don't know what the tides may bring. And so that spend down directive has been complete. And we've also wildly diversified our funds. In 2022, when we came to you for the request, you were 99% of our revenue. And today you are now 39% of that revenue. Local Works has received over $450,000 in private grants. We've received over $135,000 in individual donations. And we do a lot of in-kind work of donations to make what we do possible. So the request that we are asking for tonight is simply like our nimble operations, and we are fundraising the rest. So what you've been waiting for, our 2027 request. We are requesting a total of $377,200. The general operations matches exactly what we requested last year at $327,200. Actually, it might be a little bit less. And then $50,000 for our local business grant making. So what the general operations looks like at that $327,200. So this is all forecasted of what we aim to do in 2027. But I think through our work, you know that when we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it better than we said we were going to. So for Live Local, we anticipate to impact over 1,700 residents. We will continue the Business Block Party series, and we'll be moving that back to West 29th Marketplace. We really believe that this timing is actually great with all the new businesses that have gone to West 29th. It will be a great way to kick that off again. Ridge Fest, we will continue to be at the green, and we will continue to get really creative with our activation on the avenue after. We did hear from local business owners after Ridge Fest this year that they did see a spike in sales for people that when Ridge Fest ended and last call was at 7:30, that they then started walking down the corridor. We did create an entire branded media kit for every business on 38th Avenue that we sent out prior to the event so they could match our marketing, and it was wild, wild deals. So since Ridge Fest was Wild Wild West, businesses were offering wild, wild deals. So we will continue to do that. And the business corridor work will continue. So Ridge at 38 and Explore 44 still need some work. And there's several initiatives that we'd like to enhance. Currently, there is a universal coupon available on 38th Avenue for 20% off up to $100. So what that means is anyone could go into Mountain Milk, order a vanilla latte, present this coupon. They get 20% off that vanilla latte. On a quarterly basis, Local Works works with every business owner and asks how many coupons were redeemed at what price point. They come back to us and say, we had a total of $135 redeemed, and we cut them that check. So the business remains whole, and it's just trying to drive foot traffic. So we're looking to increase that program. And then moreover, we're looking to increase engagement on 44th when it comes to continued signage, continued placemaking, and some online presence. So we have considered, is there an Explore 44 similar website that is launched similar to Ridge at 38? And we will be starting those strategic discussions in 2027. For neighborhood support, we will have, for our cleanup days, we'll have 20 plus dumpsters at each event, and we will have 30 block party grants and 30 dumpster grants. We are asking the city to fund 15 of each, and then Colorado Gives Foundation is coming in to make that an even 30 for each of those items. And then finally, volunteer engagement. That is one of Local Works' specialties that's a little bit magical, that we have a ton of volunteers that volunteer in the city and then go on to do bigger and better things. We are starting a volunteer committee, which we're very excited about, to have peer-to-peer leadership within volunteers, and we anticipate to impact 200 plus volunteers next year. When it comes to our innovation and social connectedness, For Clear Creek Makerspace, we're going to focus on the expansion and nurturing our current members. We just passed 320-ish the other day, so we continue to climb and climb. In the Creative Commons, we are looking to have 13 rentable studio spaces open in Q3 of 2027. And then finally, Local Works has taken a new way of engaging the community in education, and so we will continue to partner with the city on that, as well as other initiatives that come up. So you may remember when we were going through the educational pieces around the Lutheran Legacy Campus, we held an event at the Makerspace called Calzones and Zones, where we fed everyone calzones and we talked about zoning and what it really means. We've done ballots and beans, we've done housing hour. As you can tell, I like alliterations. So we will continue to do that and partner with the city. And moreover, our Partners in Progress Committee has really taken this under their own wing, and they are looking for other initiatives outside of big things that we know that we need to educate folks in our city on to understand how can we be better. And one thing that they're working on now is specifically with Stevens Elementary and a Safe Bike to Walk School event and program. For the grant making, so this is somewhat of a new request for Local Works. We believe that we showed how well we can manage a large amount of funds and give out grants in an equitable way that when audited is cleared. So this request is a $50,000 request that we asked for a general available grant to all Wheat Ridge businesses. We are not looking to target specific corridors, and moreover, we're not necessarily looking to target specific projects. So in the past, we've had grant programs that have targeted signage and facade improvements and those physical improvements to brick and mortars, which is extremely important. But there's also this other side of the coin that Local Works hears from businesses quite often of, I really need to hire a social media contractor for 3 months to get me the content I need to advertise the way that I need to reach new customers. And you can't get a loan for that at a bank. You can't really apply for a grant for that. So this grant program that we're looking to create will have an open-ended option for a project where we will say, you know, here's some ideas, but if you have an open-ended project, please let us know. We have a proven track record of governance and making sure that this is done in a way that feels transparent and fair. So we will have a board-appointed committee, and council will be invited to serve through the mayor. So the Local Works Board of Directors will appoint specific people to the committee, and then through the mayor, we will appoint elected officials. The timeline for launch for that grant program, so currently, we are preparing all of the internal operations of what that grant program will bring now. And then in the fall, we will be starting to market the program upon when we receive notice that our budget request has been approved. In late fall, that is when the program announcement we would like to announce to businesses so they can start preparing projects. We hope to host several different types of office hours for local business owners to come speak to us, since this will be a new program, to understand if and how their project might be eligible, with a launch date for applications to open January 1st of 2027. We'd like to prep business owners earlier on that this is coming so they can be ready to click submit on that January 1 application deadline. Local Works anticipates that this will be a rolling deadline where grants that are received are then reviewed on a monthly basis with clear communication of how much of the funds are left for businesses to be aware of if they're starting an application, to whether or not they need to pause for that next fiscal year to turn over if we don't have enough funds. Oh, well, format quote, that's cute. So I just want to end with our work truly is, it feels like it's alive in Wheat Ridge, and that is because of you. Local Works was created in 2005 from a discussion inside these council chambers of what we thought this community might need. And 21 years later, it has truly become that beating heart in the community that you can point some of this data to, but some of it you just can't. So I greatly appreciate all the detailed conversations we have all had over the years about the work of Local Works, and moreover, we appreciate your continued support and look forward to continuing to serve Wheat Ridge.
Thank you, Executive Director Piper. That was a great presentation. Do we have any questions? She was that good. Okay, there we go. Counselor Ohm.
A couple, and the first one is, if you don't have an answer for it, that's fine. But the one thing that I've seen a lot, kind of around beyond Wheat Ridge, is the in-kind app. And is that something that Local Works has looked at? Because I don't know if you're familiar with it, the in-kind app.
I'm not familiar.
My wife uses it all the time. So, but what it does is it's something that businesses use to draw people to come to their specific business. I know nothing about the percentages, but it seems that it's very business friendly. And then that's something that I'm just curious, like, how does that work? Does the business have to pay? And then do they have to take a loss? I don't know. But I think it's great that you're offering the coupons at 20%, reimbursing the businesses, driving that traffic. And then my comment on the attainability for artists, I think that's really great for our community. I know the makerspace has become such a strong community magnet. When you walk in there, you can see the people. It's like they found their community, and they're really happy, and they're telling other people to join. And so that kind of leads to my third question, which is you've been at the helm, you've created this successful programming, the Local Works, the Makerspace, and we're going beyond the Makerspace. Are there, at some point, I would imagine that other communities are probably asking you, like, hey, that's really cool. We'd like you to either replicate it or, how do we do this? Is that something that's happening with the success of the Makerspace and Local Works?
That's a great question, Counselor Ohm. I think my answer tonight is that we're here to serve Wheat Ridge and continue that capacity. The Board of Directors did just finish a 2027 through 2030 strategic plan, which we'll be excited to share the results of that soon. Where Local Works could consider what do services look like outside of Wheat Ridge, but our end result to that will always be, are we still serving Wheat Ridge at the capacity that we've promised to?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you. That's always so exciting of a presentation. I just want a couple reflections and then a question. I mean, I just feel like the return on investment for the city is just extraordinary with Local Works. I mean, just to see those real impacts, both with our residents and our businesses, really align strongly with our goals, but also the intangibles that are captured in photos and stories are, really at the heart of what makes us stronger for the things that are ahead of us. So I just want to thank you for all of that work. It's just really, sometimes it's hard to really put a finger on. So a couple of pictures go a long way, but it's the real value that Local Works brings. And it makes me wonder, I'm like, you were asking for exactly $1,000 more than you did last year. I was like, what if we gave them $2,000 more than last year? Like, what? Just because every dollar invested in Local Works is clearly coming back to us. And in that, I just want to call out the diversification of your funding. I know that was a promise Local Works made to us several years ago. And to actually make good on that and to, achieve what this board and your leadership have done, really makes it easy to get behind the type of funding, because it comes back to our community, but you're bringing in other partners who are willing to make those same investments. So I just want to recognize that. With the business grant program, it's my day job is doing pretty significant re-granting out to other programs. And one of the things we have found through that work is that sometimes there's alignment across our different re-grantees where it's more cost effective for us to retain specifically a communications firm to provide them the communication support was much more cost effective than for us to be giving them small grant funds for them to go get communications. So I just want to suggest as this program is ramping up for 2027, looking at for efficiencies like that. I know each business kind of has its own unique things, but a lot of times finding a communications firm that's able to work at scale with small business can actually take a lot of time for the business to go find. So if there are efficiencies like that, would that be something that Local Works Board would be open to doing, like retaining? I'll just use communications because that's what we run into. And I know a lot of our small businesses struggle with finding support through social media strategy and like the design and outreach aspects. So would that be something that Local Works would be open to contemplating as part of that program?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think it's already occurring in a way where we don't have like a retainment policy right now on the board for something like that. Could we adopt that? Yes. But with how that we've grown, like the entrepreneurial services that we have inside of the makerspace, we have a lot of those people already on standby, where it could cross over. But I think it's a great idea to consider of just bigger of what that policy might look like and how we make sure that the money that we're flowing through these local businesses is efficient, and getting the best bang for their buck.
Great. Well, thanks for all of your work. It really is paying off. Thank you.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions. The first one has to do with the private grants. And over the last 5 years, it looks like Local Works has been very successful in obtaining private grants, hitting a high point last year of almost just under half of the annual revenue. Very impressive. What I'm hearing, though, and I'm on another nonprofit board, and some of the traditional sources of private funding, grants and foundations and whatnot, have slowed down and become more selective or moved some of their traditional grant making to a different place. Are there concerns that if the forecast for this year and next year turn out to be a little less, when Local Works has such a big part of its revenue stream from private grants, are there alternatives, or are there other courses of action?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I like to caution folks, because I get this question a lot, that every nonprofit is different and every nonprofit qualifies for different things in the private grant world. Right now, Local Works is not fearful of that landscape. We're always prepared that it could change, but right now our funding sources seem to be very stable. During that strategic planning session that I mentioned with the board, we actually just did an entire sustainability succession plan for the organization that many nonprofits don't have the chance to do with small teams. And part of that was going through a checklist that if a storm comes and we have to cut programming, what programs are we willing to cut? So we do have that list that understands what programs can we cut and what programs can we not cut to maintain the Local Works mission. And moreover, that question came back every single time to, are we still serving the city of Wheat Ridge in the way that we promised to? So it could change, but right now we're not fearful of that. And if it does, we do have a plan.
Thank you. And the other question is on the business grant program. This will be the first time out of the box where it's, you guys know going in that the program will be in place and there'll be that amount of grant money if it's approved. Yeah. Can you say you gained any experience from what happened in 2026 with the sort of last minute working on the WADS grant program that kind of landed in your lap? Any experiences from that you can carry forward?
That's a great question. I think off at the top of mind, the largest thing that we learned is businesses don't want those guardrails. They don't want you to tell them that you can only fund A, B, and C. They want to tell you what they need for funding and what that plan looks like. We also learned and went back and forth quite a bit on the reporting of what this grant would look like. So when someone is granted the funds, what is the conversation with them after, rather than just dropping off a check and hoping for the best? How are we staying in contact with that business and how are they actually meeting those metrics? And I think we learned how to make it less complicated and how to make it less admin heavy and less almost intrusive for the business owner, where they feel like we're just telling a story after the funds rather than we're checking up on them.
And then, yeah, one last thing. If you're, it sounds like it's not going to be, the grants are for facades and signs and limited to certain types of things that happen around a business. But are there things that would not be eligible? I'm thinking first off, payroll.
I think we're going into this with, we want to hear that story. I don't think that's going to have a great, I guess if you're going up against another applicant that may have a plan outside of payroll, that might work itself out. But right now, we are not planning to state that anything is ineligible at this time to be considered.
Well, I'm looking forward to the results. Thank you.
Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Paige, for being here and for this presentation. I'm a big fan of Local Works. I have a really unique history, and I feel like I understand a lot of the history of Local Works, and I feel lucky to have been a part of some of that. But the way that Local Works is now and the evolution that Local Works has taken is just really, really incredible. And of course, I think that a lot of that, I have to say, is due to incredible leadership. So big kudos to you and your team and your board, because I think Local Works is just doing amazing things and just continues to top itself every year almost. One question that I just wanted to clarify, just because I think it's really cool, the Creative Commons, you said that there will be how many more and when?
There should be, I might be a little bit off on the number, there should be 13 rentable studio spaces, and we're hoping Q3 of 2027.
That's great. And they'll all be in that same area by the makerspace?
Yes, so the parking spots that are directly behind the makerspace on the parking lot that we share with the pool, those parking spots are within our lease, and so the shipping containers will be horizontally placed there, attached to the ground via helical piers with full electrical and climate control.
Right. That's great. That's wonderful. I think that knowing how creative our community is and the focus that our community puts on art and creativity, it's wonderful. I wanted, let's see, what do I have here? I wanted to just also call out the programming that you mentioned and that you will continue to have on the civic side of engagement. And I really am thankful for that. And I think it is a really unique list of programs and programming and knowledge and discussion that you bring to our residents. And so I want to just call that out and say thank you. And if anything, I'd just say more of that, please, because it's always needed. And I think people will receive it really well. And then just thank you for taking on the Wadsworth grant program. And then I'm just excited to see what happens with the program going forward. It sounds great. So thank you.
Counselor Okada.
Thank you. Thank you, Executive Director Piper. I want to echo what a lot of the other councils have said, that thank you for your hard work. Local Works is extremely special. The ROI, as Mayor Pro Tem put it, is incredible, and it's a unique thing for our city. So thank you very much for that. This might be quick question, quick answer situation, but who makes up the group that reviews the grant proposals?
We still need to create that. So it will be an appointed group by the Local Works Board of Directors for our internal people, and then we'll work with Mayor Stites to appoint elected officials.
Wonderful, thank you. You also, thanks for reminding me about the coupon redemption on 38th Avenue. How do customers, how do guests to 38th Avenue encounter these coupons and the offer on the front end of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we provided quite a bit of materials for businesses to put out to make sure that people are aware of it. We have done several different marketing strategies to make sure that folks are aware of it. So part of it is if you're familiar with Local Works and you look at our programs, you can find it there. If you're browsing ridget38.org after being on the corridor, and if someone visits and sees that on the flagpoles throughout the corridor and they visit, they find the coupon right away. But a lot of it is partnership with businesses and getting them to buy into the very easy media kits that we send that probably takes 15, 20 minutes to edit that then they can put out in their storefronts to make sure that they're best utilizing our program. So it's definitely a partnership of marketing.
Great, thank you. Yeah, thank you again. That's all I have.
Counselor Wood.
Paige, I wanted to thank you for the information that was provided in our packet and for the presentation tonight. I mean, it was so complete. It's so easy to read and so easy to get the full gist of everything that Local Works does. I still consider myself somewhat fairly new on the board and still getting used to all of the things that are offered. But it's amazing to me how well supported businesses are and also residents of Wheat Ridge as a result of the work that Local Works does. It's phenomenal. Again, thank you. And to echo something that Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen brought up, I was so amazed, and I thought the degree of diversification with the revenue stream over such a short period of time, I think is amazing. And I think that you're to be, and Local Works overall is to be commended for that. I really do have a question in here too. Just on one specific thing that I've come to find out about, I didn't know this, the neighborhood I live in actually takes advantage of the block party grants. And and have for several years. Again, I did not know that. Is that a program that is oversubscribed? I mean, do you reach a point each year where you have to turn people away because the funds are used? Because again, first of all, I can't think of a better way to create community for residents to get to know each other and socialize with each other, and that's really what makes a community. So I think it's a great program, but I did wonder if it was oversubscribed.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say on average, yes. On average per year, we typically receive more applications with the block party grants and the dumpster grants than we're able to approve. I think in the theme of oversubscription, that's fair to mention here is that the dollar amount that we've been able to grant residents has not been able to grow because of the demand. So we are only able to grant residents $150 for their block party, which hasn't changed in the last 5 years. The economy has changed drastically in the last 5 years. So when we think about how far $150 can go, sometimes it's not that far. That's why Local Works, over the past several years when we weren't able to find other funding sources to bulk up that budget line item, we started working with Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A now donates up to 100 nuggets to these block parties, and the cow usually delivers it himself. We also have other partnerships that are similar to that with in-kind donations that can occur. What we're aiming to do now that we have this partnership for only a year with Colorado Gives to see what we can do is both increase the amount of grants, but also consider increasing the amount of the dollars given per grant to better match how the economy has trended and what things actually cost to hold a block party.
One more quick question. Something I did not know about until I read, well, plenty of things, but one for sure I didn't know about until I read the packet was about the library of things that can be rented or checked out. I'm sure you're probably looking to grow that. Do you want donations of good things, or is this something that could be overwhelming as far as where to keep it or store it?
Yeah, right now we are at our square footage max in that block party library. So we love the donations, and actually we get random donations almost every day. So we now have a donation form that you can fill out online of whether or not we can accept your donation. We are looking to add some permanency to the block party library. Colorado Gives Foundation has committed $55,000 to the block party library for that line item. Because right now we're renting a Go Mini shipping container to store the items. So that might allow us to buy it out. It might allow us to buy a commercial truck and deliver the block party to you. So more to come on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? As usual, Paige, thank you very much. I've always said you treat this more like an entrepreneurial adventure more than just a nonprofit. We meet a lot of nonprofits in this work, and some of the executive directors kind of stand there and go, we have no money, we never have any money. It's it's kind of a victim mentality, and we've seen you get out and diversify the revenue and use it, and then tell the story about it, and then use that to. I do have one question for you. What and you might have already said it with Councilor Wood's question, but what, if anything, do you think Local Works could add or really invest in more of?
That's a big question,
That's a
Mayor
big question,
Stites.
for sure. But if it was like one thing, like if you could add.
Man,
Storage.
yeah, I
Every
think,
homeowner's problem.
honestly, I think it would be a larger pool of money for grants for small businesses, which I realize is something new that we're trying to do, but it's something that we've heard over and over again that people need. Tyler, our director of the Makerspace, would say he would want a second story. But I think when we say what support do we need, the Makerspace is thriving in a way that it is supporting itself. And so when we think about why Wheat Ridge 2020 Inc. was created, I think having more availability to support businesses where they're at in a very nimble, creative way would be what we'd want to grow.
Thank you. Just to point out, we were giving the business district $90,000 up until last year, and you guys are only asking for 50. So something to consider as we look at the budget.
Yes, I like to humbly ask for the money and prove and sane results and come back the next year. But if you want to give me more, please.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we let Paige go? All right. Thank you. Fantastic presentation. And we will go on to the Wheat Ridge Chamber. Oh, do we need a quick break? All right. We will take a 10-minute break and come back at 5-minute break? Okay. We'll come back at 40 after then. All right. Doink, doink. All right, welcome back. It is 8:43. Couldn't get some of these slackers in their seats. All right, we are moving on to our third presentation here, which is the Wheat Ridge Chamber.
Thank you.
Make sure your green light is on. One more. There you go.
Oh, wow, thank you. This is great. It's great to be here, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me here. Some of you I've met, some of you I haven't. I'm Robert Ham, and I am the Chief Development Officer of Family Tree, who many of you know, the organization. I've also been a Wheat Ridge Wheat Ridge resident for the past 26 years, so love Wheat Ridge. And I joined the board of the Wheat Ridge Chamber in January of this year. So on behalf of the board, some of them who are here tonight, and the members of the chamber, really thank you so much for having us here. I'm going to keep my comments brief because I'm more interested in what you have to question about our memo. So I'm here today with the fellow members of the chamber to respectfully request from the city the amount of funding for $60,000 for the calendar year of 2027. And this request is really about growth and prosperity, especially for the businesses in Wheat Ridge. When businesses thrive in our community thrives. So there's been a lot of growth in my 26 years here. It's really an amazing job that the city has done, I think, in helping Wheat Ridge grow and become a very great place for people to come and to enjoy Colorado. I feel like the city has been very welcoming and supporting of the growth in our community. The chamber, which incorporated 57 years ago this month, I just learned that today, has been a vital part of supporting businesses as they start and grow and continue to thrive in Wheat Ridge. The chamber does business development, networking and collaboration, community engagement and advocacy, supports marketing and promotions of the business. We support businesses that are large and small, nonprofits, solopreneurs, community groups, lead groups, chamber events, and Wheat Ridge citizens. We show up at community events and partner events, ribbon cuttings, open houses, and much more. We're proud that the chamber fosters community and bolsters Wheat Ridge businesses and has really been, as we said in our memo, the go-to location for everyone. Right now, though we're approaching 200 members strong, the cost of operating, especially to continue to grow, is beyond what just membership fees support. Dominic, the great Dominic, had a great trajectory going in terms of growth, and we want to just see that continue. The $60,000 request for city funding will help support the efforts of supporting local businesses through marketing and promotions and managing events, the contractors, compensation for contractors to handle the many administrative duties associated with running the chamber. We have outreach to grow membership and to promote the chamber. There is some dollars in there, as you see, for rental and maintenance of the space where we do business. I can break that down for you. You can see it in the memo. We also put some costs in there to support the efforts to investigate combining the Wheat Ridge Business Association with the Wheat Ridge Chamber of Commerce to be more efficient and be more effective in serving our businesses. We believe that we can be stronger together. It's all of us or none of us. And we've actually compiled some great reasons for doing that in a document called Building Stronger Wheat Ridge. And so we really are behind that effort of the two combining. Our next step as a board, we are doing a strategic planning session later this month so we can look at all the initiatives that we need to do, especially with the passing of Dominic, of the amazing Dominic. So there was a lot that the board had to come together because that had happened all of a sudden. So we're really coming together as a board. Like all cities, the city of Wheat Ridge needs the chamber. I believe, and the chamber needs the city. I love what we put in our memo. This is the only place that I'll quote our memo, and that is, we believe that an investment made in Wheat Ridge Chamber of Commerce by the city will yield substantial returns for our city's economy and social fabric. By allocating the requested funds to the Wheat Ridge Chamber of Commerce, the city will be reinforcing its commitment to creating a robust business ecosystem and enhancing prosperity for local businesses. We're really grateful for your consideration of this funding in full or in part, and we welcome any questions. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. And
Sure.
I'd like to know just a little bit more about this possible effort to combine the two associations. For the longest time, it has always been a question I asked of both groups, and there was always sort of a shrug shoulders, hands up in the air, nothing can be done. What's changed?
I just think as we talk to, we actually in this document, Building a Stronger Wheat Ridge, we talked about that we're seeing businesses becoming members of both of them or being confused on which one would be the better one. And we certainly, as a chamber, would not go, oh, don't join the Wheat Ridge Business Association. And I wouldn't believe that they would do the same. But businesses not only are strapped for cash, but they're strapped for time. And we just think that there's a lot of duplicate businesses that are joining both. I think that there's great elements of both organizations that we could just combine and really give a more robust organization for people to be involved, for businesses to be involved in.
Are there discussions going on right now?
Well, that's what I think the first step in this is for us to find someone, perhaps the city, to facilitate a conversation between at least the two boards in order to bring that together and just start those discussions and see how it could actually be managed and how it makes sense and why we need to do it and why now.
And I appreciate that, and I'm very encouraged by what I've heard, and I wish you guys the best of luck on being able to work something out.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Wood?
I just wanted to confirm that I'm understanding correctly that both associations, the Chamber and the Wheat Ridge Business Association, are interested in merging and at least talking about it.
At this point, we're just speaking for ourselves right now. I'm not representing the Wheat Ridge Business Association
thank
for
you.
sure. I'm just saying thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. That's why we want to have that bigger discussion among all of us. Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Holtine?
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
I don't have a question as much as just sort of a continued reflection on I think, value to our community to really have a more focused business engagement organization. I think I've heard from business owners a little confusion over why two, is there a difference if I have to pick between one? And so, I mean, I think some of the work ahead, it's great that you guys internally have identified a path forward and that there's some high-level conversations beginning, but it really feels to me like strategically the next year, if there's not supporting someone that comes in that really has a background and expertise in facilitating these kind of things. I don't know if the city's the right partner for that, but I know there's a lot of consultants out there that really look at merging, community benefit organizations in a way that the intentions that have gone into forming them are contemplated, and to see what that type of negotiation looks like. So, that feels like, especially as we have a new economic development manager in place and prosperity plan is getting rolled out. And so having, that, I think, clear nexus between the city and our business community is increasingly important. So I appreciate that the chamber's taking leadership around that. And I would definitely be supportive as we talk about this down the road at our next study session in funding some strategic facilitation and support on how that could be accomplished.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And that's why we put a little bit of funding in for that, just as a preemptive effort in order to make that happen. We certainly think that when I mentioned the city, you have been a neutral player for both of us. I mean, you're not going to recommend one above the other either, because they're both great organizations. But to facilitate, just to get the conversation going between two parties that may not necessarily know why we would combine these two. I think we've had individual conversations. I think that we've had informal conversations among members, but just to bring the parties together in a neutral way to really seriously discuss this merging, I think is important. Just to start.
Any other questions? Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this presentation. I hear my colleagues and myself kind of focusing on this, the merger or the beginning discussions, and I want to just commend you on the fact that you are broaching this subject. It's something that I think has been talked about, obviously, a lot in different organizations. It is something that, as a business owner myself, it's kind of like, where do we go? What, which path should I choose? I do want to just commend the chamber also on some of the programming that you offer. And I feel like the chamber has a very complete, diverse list of programs that you offer for different business owners and different business types. And I think that is definitely a feather in your cap.
Thank you.
And I know also just thinking about the chamber and staffing of the chamber and who is part of the chamber, I know that you're probably all still kind of figuring out how to fill those giant shoes. And I just want to commend you on that too, and understand that it is not something that's, going to go away. It's just how to move forward. And I commend you on that. So I'm really interested to see where this goes, but I appreciate you coming and appreciate the chamber. So thanks for this.
Thank you. Definitely later this month in our strategic planning session, that's going to be a big topic of discussion, is what does leadership look like moving forward? And we have to make sure that we have the right people in place. Even we have an amazing administrative contractor that we're working with, and Stephanie is still helping us too. Stephanie McGee with some of the budgeting, some of the work, and the volunteer board is just, we all once with Dominic's passing, we all just kind of came together and said, "Ooh, you take that, and you take that, and you take that." And so it was really coming together as a force, and I'm just really proud of the team that I get to work with in order to fill those, like you said, those big shoes, and what the next step in leadership looks like. So that's what part of that strategic planning will be, a big part of it, for sure.
Have you guys taken a look at the economic prosperity plan?
I have not personally. The economic prosperity plan.
Okay. Yeah, as you go into your strategic planning, maybe take a look at that document. That way you guys can align yourselves with kind of the city's priorities if you're looking, especially for city funding, and make sure that those kind of align.
Sure.
I'm not saying your organization has to, but as you look at city funding, typically you want to kind of align with some of those
Absolutely,
priorities. Yeah. Fantastic. Any other questions or comments from council before we? Awesome. Well, thank you very much for the presentation tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Who knew after 26 years I'd be sitting in this room? Really appreciate you all.
We appreciate it. Thank you to the chamber. We'll have Ralston House. Come on down. We're playing The Price is Right today, right? The donation is right. Go ahead.
I'm Trisha Riffle, and I'm the executive director at Ralston House, and I jumped a little earlier, so apologies. But I know you have a packet of information about us. To sort of recap what I shared earlier, Ralston House is the child advocacy center that is in the First Judicial District, and we provide forensic interviews, forensic medical exams, and victim advocacy to children and their families who've been victims of crime. And Wheat Ridge Police Department, we've worked alongside them for many years and provided those services. So what it looks like to help you understand, when I tell people I do forensic interviews, they're like, what in the world is that? So really what that looks like is Wheat Ridge Police Department calling Ralston House and saying, I need a specialized interview that will help me understand what has happened to a child, what kind of circumstances they've been in, so I can develop leads or get to a space where I might be able to prosecute a case or find out if there's something that, it may not be criminal in nature, is there something else that this family needs? So Wheat Ridge partners with us, and they they refer children and families to us, and we provide those specialized interviewing services. In addition to the interviewing services, we also provide medical exams. Sometimes we have children that need head-to-toe medical exams. Any child that's a victim of a sexual assault can receive a medical exam at Ralston House. We do not provide acute care, so a child would need to go if they had been assaulted more than or less than 72 hours. They would need to go to an emergency department. If they had injuries, we wouldn't be able to care for them at Ralston House appropriately. And so we're post 72 hours. And we also provide victim advocacy. So when children and their families come to see us, what do the next few steps look like for you and your family as you try to put your lives back together and may be headed towards some kind of resolution within the criminal justice system, or you may not be. It really depends on the circumstances. And so maybe you need resources and some escorting through the system, whether that be child protection or it very well may be the criminal justice system. So Ralston House has occupied 2 facilities for many years. We've had one in Lakewood and one in Arvada, and those 2 sites have been primarily responsible for delivering services for the First Judicial District. Our Lakewood site is in need of lots of repair, and so recently went up for sale, and we were able to sell our Lakewood site. And our Arvada site, that Arvada site is owned by the city of Arvada, and we've occupied it for more than 20 years. And we've just outgrown it. And so it's time for us to move into a larger facility, and the city of Arvada has the community table, and they moved to a different site off of 66th and Sheridan. And so their old site became available, and the city offered that site to us. So this one-time ask is for renovations of that site. And what it offers is pretty incredible. We're really excited about it. And it offers 4 interview pods, and so we can interview 4 children all at the same time in their own confidential spaces, which is in the interest of trauma-informed care really important. And we're so excited that we're able to offer this. We also have the medical pod, and so we would be able to do medicals at the same time. We also have a larger office area for all of our employees. I have 14 employees, 6 of those are forensic interviewers, and I have some contract medical people as well as victim advocates. And so parking would be really important for all of them as well, because we're in the street right now in our residential neighborhood. And while all the residents in the neighborhood love us, would they be appreciative if we got out of their driveways? So part of that is parking, part of that is office space. And the most exciting part of the new space is a 100-person training room. And so we're an accredited child advocacy center, which just means that we adhere to a particular set of standards and a few of those standards are we provide training to our multidisciplinary team 6 times a year, and we currently have to go to lots of different spaces to try and find space to host 100 or more people, but we would love to have that within our own facility. We also have forensic interviewers on staff that train across the state, and we go across the state. We'd love to host that at our own site. So we strengthen forensic interviewing within the state of Colorado. We'd love to be a partner with all of our other child advocacy centers. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of what the building looks like, and what we're doing, our capital campaign, we've done this before. So we have another site in the city of Northglenn, and we've been there approximately 8 years. They invited us to come on into the 17th Judicial District about 8 years ago. We ran a very similar capital campaign. That was a build, though, as well. And so all of the municipalities within the 17th Judicial District contributed money to that building. That building is owned by the city of Northglenn, and they maintain it inside and out for us. So this is the same sort of idea in the sense of all the municipalities contribute. We're also running a capital campaign, and we are getting funding from the Gates Foundation, In-N-Out Burger, lots of different capital campaign organizations are contributing, but we're also asking the municipalities to do so as well. And so we've been very successful before in the 17th, and so just really excited to do this in the first as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, share any additional information.
Thank you. We have questions from council? You scared them all away. Mayor Pro Tem Holting.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for the important work that your organization does. It's actually really heartbreaking to hear how much space and capacity and staff you need to do this work, because the need that drives that is really just heartbreaking. And it's also an invisible piece in our community that I think a lot of people don't think about, in part because there's so much, I think, good protection in place around crimes against children that they're not as visible in so many ways. And so this is important, valuable work for some of our most vulnerable community members. And I'm glad you're here tonight to share a little bit more. And my heart was breaking a little bit when you were sharing some of those numbers that is needed to do the work, especially your staffing capacity. So appreciate all your staff and that work. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. And again, thank you for all the work you do. Ralston House is an amazing program. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And our last organization tonight, the Wheat Ridge Historical Society. Good evening.
My lovely assistant. I do have a teacher's voice, but would you like me to use the microphone? Yeah. How do I do that? Oh, I'm on?
You're on.
Okay, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marta Hetty, and I serve on the board of the Historical Society as the Publications Director. I'm here tonight to present the Society's thoughts about the city hiring a trained and paid professional to lead the organization into the future. I hope this presentation will educate and enlighten you about the current problems and future possibilities. We're a small but mighty group, but we're aging. In the photo on the left, 3 of the people from this photo 2 years ago are no longer with us. We're trying to keep pace with the demands of modern technology and an avalanche of work, but we're constantly behind. When you look at the photo on the right, you see a Hoosier, a fixture once common to every farm kitchen in America. I see a window to 118 items on that Hoosier that have to be accessioned. That's museum speak for processing and recording. Each item takes 1 to 3 hours to process. We have 8,000 to 10,000 items in our collections. About a year ago, we embarked on a research project. We gathered information from several museums in peer cities, mostly metro suburbs like Wheat Ridge. Though the cities were similar in size, what they offered to the public in the way of historical museums differed vastly. They ranged from one small building, a former house on a main street, to a 40-acre working farm with animals and a caretaker residence, complete with a gorgeous exhibition hall and oodles of storage space. Sigh. Although healthy groups of volunteers enabled all the museums to function, 5 of the 6 museums in the survey have paid, trained staff working with them. You can see the 6 suburban museums across the top of this chart. I want to bring your attention to a couple of things highlighted here. In the green, you have the number of paid staff each museum has, along with the number of volunteers and the hours those volunteers put in each year. Note that all of the other museums have at least one full-time museum professional, even if they only have 1 or 2 buildings. Also, most are supported by trained, part-time, paid professionals as well. Although our ratio of volunteers to number of hours worked stacks up pretty well, there's still room for improvement. Other statistics to consider are highlighted in blue. These deal with services to the community. Even much smaller museums offer many more open hours and lots more events to their communities than we can. I have to insert an editorial note here. This slide represents the moment of enlightenment for our research committee. They, and in turn, the entire board, realized all the surveyed museums had one thing that made the difference. Ask what their programs were like before and since they hired trained personnel. The answers left us stunned. Comments about the before trained staff paralleled what we are going through exactly. And what they said about life with trained staff rekindled our hope. Their volunteer numbers increased, and because those volunteers received training, they knew what they were doing. Work proceeded quicker. Collections received regular and better care. Communities came to know the value of local history. Children get acquainted with and appreciate history because of the programs offered to them. We are so lucky to have Brandon Altenberg working with us. He's professional, resourceful, kind, and a gifted grant writer. Excuse me. The downside, we're plagued with spotty record keeping, and that means many of the grants are unattainable because of this. However, we do have successful revenue streams. Our 2 yearly festivals, the May Fest and the Apple Cider Day, are well attended, and we are expanding gatherings like that to 4 a year. Our new outreach program is developing so rapidly we can't keep up. We have ideas concerning more recent history than the pioneer-based century-long story that we're known for. We want to develop these, but we have no one to develop them. Meanwhile, opportunities continue to pass us by. We realize that community engagement is the key. We want every visitor to the museums as thoroughly fascinated as these kids are. We want people curious about what made this city we live in such a wonderful place. The word lack comes up often. Lack of technical knowledge plagues us. Our lack of volunteers and lack of training, we've talked about. Add to that, lack of space to store the collections we do have. Remember, 8 to 10,000? Standard museum practice is to have 10% of the collections on display and 90% rotated in and out of storage when they need them for exhibition. We have a much higher percentage of our collection on display. We simply have no place else to put it. Lack of ability to properly curate artifacts and archival materials is another facet. Saddest is our lack of the ability to accept important donations and continue to build important relationship with some of the founders of this community. You probably recognize the name Apel, or Appel is the German pronunciation, founding farmers in this area. The red dress pictured here is Mrs. Appel's wedding dress from 1882. It's been offered to us along with a treasure trove of well-curated family ephemera. We not only don't have the room to store it, we don't have the appropriate temperature-controlled environment to keep the delicate silk from rotting. We ask your cooperation, your benevolence, your civic responsibility to form a partnership. We love this city, and we want to properly care and preserve its history and heritage from the 1800s right up to yesterday. We can't do it alone. Hiring a professional with training in museum science is the key. That commitment has worked for neighboring cities all around us. Evidence across the board indicates that they were able to emerge from the mire and forge sustainable operations and increased revenue sources to serve their community with the help of trained individuals. Thank you. After the next couple of presentations, we'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Marta. I'm Karen O'Donnell, the Director of Parks and Recreation, and as Marta mentioned, Brandon Altenberg is the staff liaison for the Historical Society. Brandon's on vacation today, so I'm filling in with just a little additional information because staff reviewed the request that Historical Society put forward in an effort to draft a job description and a formal position request for budget consideration. And we felt that the best way to make this a viable full-time position request would be to include public art coordination and cultural events and programs. And just to tag onto that a teeny bit, the city currently contracts out public art consultant services. So if we had a position, we wouldn't need to have that contract moving forward. And the Wheat Ridge Parks and Recreation Pathway clearly indicated that the community would like to see more cultural programs and events. So including that in this position would be something that would be of benefit to the community and what they've expressed interest in. So with that, the Historical Society will conclude their presentation with just a little snippet into their year-to-year annual budget, which Bonnie's going to share. Bonnie, you can take my seat, and then together you all can answer questions.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are have been gifted with budget to operate as the Wheat Ridge Historical Society for a number of years. And it was executive committee way before I started on the executive committee who approached the city. At this point, we have approximately $10,000 a year that we try to allocate to different portions of what it takes to operate. We try to publish as many brochures as we can to give out at public events, in-house. Sometimes we have to hire it done, and the city budget helps us do that. We advertise in the Gazette. You've seen Marta's articles in the Gazette. And in kind, we also have an advertisement, which is our biggest advertising budget. The city graciously expenses our post office box annually. We have a few other operating expenses, but they've come down over the course of time. We historically not spent the entire budget. It's just not possible to get these few people to find ways to spend all this money. But in 2026, we are on track for using the balance of the money. We have a major expense of repairing a display cabinet, which is a beautiful piece of antique in and of itself. We're going to upgrade our outreach presentations, get some rolling bins to bring things to our fraternal organizations whenever we can visit them and share our history of Wheat Ridge so they don't have to come to us. We're also doing outreach at Sprouts. We have over here on Kipling, we have an opportunity to have a table out there so people, while they're shopping, they can find out a little bit more about the Wheat Ridge Historical Society. And other than that, the city helps us fund our accounting and Past Perfect. Past Perfect is a software which has all our artifacts, or will have all our artifacts on it. It helps us maintain a database of our membership and our volunteer hours. It is a wonderful piece of software which is in use in many, many organizations throughout the country, the United States. I think it's well worth the money. So in 2027, we requested a slight increase from 2026, and that is about $200 for ink. As we said, we like to print everything in-house if we can. It's a little less expensive that way, and we have our volunteers use their own home computers for the most part to design these things, and at any rate, the Wheat Ridge Historical Society is over 50 years old. As you know, it kind of started in 1976, Save Our Sadi, the Sadi over there at 4610 Robb. And if you haven't been to the historical park, boy, it is a gem. So are there any other questions about the current budget that I might be able to answer for you?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation.
Yeah. Good job, Marta.
Councilors, questions? Councilor Okada.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation. First off, thanks for the Historical Society. History is so deeply important, and being able to be good stewards of our history, both the incredibly important local history that goes back even just to the founding of the city, but back much further, and educating the visitors to the Historical Society, myself included, lots of really fascinating things. That's such an important thing to any community, to any society, to be able to review that stuff. Thank you for this request as well. I think being able to get into a place where we've progressed so far as a community to need something that gets to a place of upgrade where we can be able to further protect those things, I think is really critical. So I appreciate the request. I appreciate the research that has gone into this. That is no small feat to be able to take a look at that information. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The one thing I want to ask is, my sister-in-law has a master's degree in museum and collection curation, and so I understand it's a very specialized task. And this question might also be for you, Karen. When I hear we need a full-time employee to be able to help us with curation activities and those sorts of duties, I don't imagine somebody whose focus is going to be spread to many other things. But I do understand the important principle of being able to bring on a staff member that has the efficiency to be able to help cover in many areas that we're looking at there. I guess that's more a comment. The question that I have as well is the type of backlog that we have as a historical society. Is it a backlog of materials that has grown to a scale over a period of time, or is it a continuous drip and feed of materials that are coming in that the rate of materials coming in is now insurmountable?
Actually, a couple of years ago, we had to halt donations because we were just gobsmacked You know, there's so much to do and takes so long to do, 1 to 3 hours for, I mean, that seems unimaginable, I know, but by the time you measure everything, photograph it from a bunch of different angles, research all of the history surrounding it so that you can cross-reference when you put it up on the internet, you can cross-reference it. So, you know, if it's a ring that belonged to somebody, well, who else is in the family and what other pieces of jewelry and all those kinds of things. That takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of know-how.
And to answer your question, it's some of each, but mostly when we took on the century-long story project, the Wheat Ridge Historical Society, the Red Brick House, the post office that is on the property was full to overflowing. The soddy had a bunch of stuff in it that really wasn't period, the log cabin. So over the course of, I would say, the last 5 years, we have really depicted the century-long story. The cabin is one era, the soddy is another era, the red brick house is another era. A wonderful archive committee has knuckled down and got that post office into ship shape so they can find information when people write to us and say, can you tell me about this house that my family used to own? Yes, we can now. We don't have to say no because we can actually get to it because of that wonderful committee. But when it comes to the stuff, we need some direction.
Very understandable. You know, and hearing too that it's a bit of both. And I mean, it would have to be if you're in a place of like when you had to stop taking donations. The makes me wonder if the backlog, the scale of the backlog, is something that's more of a temporary issue that maybe a consultant could be able to come in and help us with.
We're working our way through it, but we certainly could use some help. A trained professional, somebody who knows about curation, you know?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know. And there are programs, we want to expand, excuse me, but let me give you an example. We just recently found out that the second grade curriculum in Jefferson County schools is local history. Duh. Here we are. Let's get those second graders over to that park. Let's get every second grader in Wheat Ridge over to that park. Who's going to pay for the busing? You know, we'll be glad to volunteer, our time and teach.
And to that end, we do that. For instance, we had the Sun Camp from the Wheat Ridge Rec Center, and it was all hosted by Wheat Ridge Historical Society volunteers who gave up, their whole day, 2 days, one with the older kids, one with the younger kids. It's not for lack of manpower, it's lack of best practices for museums. And with a leader who has some education to that end.
Yeah. And if I could speak to that real quick, Councilmember Makata, I don't think any of us anticipate even a full-time person dedicated to the Historical Society would be able to archive everything. I think we need somebody to help coordinate that. And I think we probably, if we can get something organized, we'll probably come back to council and ask for money for a consultant team to come in and do that work with the help of these folks. But for just one person's not going to be able to do it.
Thank you. That's clicking for me.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holting.
Thank you so much for all your work. My father did some historic preservation, and I spent my childhood running through abandoned historic buildings, like picking up artifacts and making up stories because I didn't have anyone to ask. So I appreciate the work. I have two questions, really. One is, I'm unclear when we're talking about this FTE, who would be supervising the FTE? Would they be employed by the city, or who would be? Karen, I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, it would be a city employee.
Okay.
Most likely working for Brandon.
Okay.
At this point.
Okay.
Yep.
And then a couple of different times in the presentation, both the presentation we were looking at and some of the things that were said, it sounds like some of the record keeping gaps have been
keeping you from being eligible for the types of grants that would really support some of the big needs of the Historical Society. Can you clarify what kind of record-keeping gaps you're talking about? Are they financial record-keeping, or are they the type of archiving, record-keeping?
Well, it's very difficult to keep track of volunteer hours when you have no volunteer coordinator. You know, we have somebody that said, I'll collect them. Fine, but that, you know, not everybody writes them down. I came up with a form, and now everybody's got a form. It's still kind of sketchy. And one of the things that they ask for grants, a lot of grants, is how many volunteers do you have? How many hours did they work? You know, what's the distribution there? What kind, you know, and then that feeds into other things. If we can't provide that core, and everybody's, you know, really means to, we really mean well, but I can't go and harangue somebody. You know, I'm just another volunteer. So that's one facet. As far as the gaps go, yeah, there is a backlog in things that need to be accessioned. We are making progress. We made a lot of progress when we were preparing the century-long story to get caught up. But we're still only at about 5%.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, about 5 years ago, we had a steering committee. And the steering committee made a whole long list of what the Wheat Ridge Historical Society would love to have. And it was huge. And then we turn around and we're, you know, 75 to 80-year-old people who we just can't get it done. So it would be wonderful to have somebody who was able to enroll or give us ideas how to enroll younger people and get them involved, and who is, I want, for lack of a better term, expert, but really educated, who has the knowledge to put these things together.
Yeah, thanks for the additional details on that. It seems to me that there's sort of this like hierarchy of needs. I mean, there's the backlog of items that need to be accessioned. Is that the right word? But you know, what you're really running up against, and really by default the city's running up against, is, you know, the ability to, you know, keep the programming of the Historic Society moving forward in a way that it's accessible to our community, which is really important. I'm excited about the proposal of a full-time person, in part because I think it meets some other needs in our city, with us looking at, you know, relocating City Hall to Lutheran campus. We have a lot of historic properties in our city and a lot of history. So I think it's important for us to value that. And I think what comes across to me is that the city's partnership also around helping with some of these administrative tasks and helping getting the type of work done that then would allow leveraging for grants seems really important, because I think the hard work of the backlog, like if we could be in a position where we could do paid internships or, you know, get some of that grant funding, then we can start addressing some of those second order things. But right now there's just not the capacity both to run the bare bones as well as like do that prioritization so that it's in a position to get additional funding. So in general, I support this. I think the FTE conversation kind of couches in with the budget overall, because in general, we tend to talk about FTEs that are budget. But I'm very supportive of continuing funding the operations. But I think I really support the city coming in as a partner to help with those first order operations so that you can be more effective and hopefully leverage more investment. So.
Councilor Larson. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Snell had her hand up first.
Thank you. I have a few questions, and I apologize if they're bouncing around a little bit. The first thing I wanted to know, the program Past Perfect, was that, I feel like I remember there was a previous like request for funds for the software and perhaps a consultant. And is that how we got that software?
Past Perfect is a real common program used by museums. In fact, we originally started out with 17 cities that we were going to go after. The majority of them use Past Perfect. It has the capability not only to record accessioned information, but you can go online with it. We only have 5% online, but it's a start. You know?
And we started, I think it was in 2025.
Yeah.
As a budget item, and it's approximately $800 a year. It's probably going to go up, but yeah.
Right. So that was, okay, that's how we got to be able to use it. Okay, thank
Right.
you.
But getting trained on how to use Past Perfect is
Sure.
another thing that none of us really know how to use it.
Sure.
And it takes some training.
Sure, and I think that that was part of my question, is curious, like, because that, I think we were thinking there would be a consultant with that to kind of teach or provide, you know, how to use it, so it, you know, we're getting the most for our money. So that was one question I had, and then on the FTE, bigger picture kind of question, would this person, do you think this could evolve into like our being the staff liaison for the Cultural Commission, instead of our Parks and, or?
Yeah, that's
Rec
what we're
Center?
suggesting now. If council would like to fund the full-time, that it would oversee some cultural duties, cultural commission duties, public art, and then historic society as well, which we think they all kind of fit together a little bit. We'd figure it out how it went, and, you know, maybe there's changes or growth in the future, but to start out maybe with that.
That's helpful, because I was also going to ask about the public art consultant and how that wraps in. So I think this is an excellent idea. It feels like this person could, it would be a unicorn of a person, but I think that when we find, when we
It's possible, I
find
think.
that
I think there's
person.
people out there though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this would be a huge advantage for us in a lot of different areas. I appreciate all that y'all do. I know that it's a tall order that you have, and I appreciate it. I also appreciate the kind of movement into telling a more complete history of our area. I was appreciative of the other the list of the other communities that have historical societies, and so I did some looking, and it looks like several of them are also, you know, kind of looking at the complete history and thinking about land acknowledgements and things like that, which I think is also a big part of, it's a part of where we are now, and I appreciate that. And I guess to that point, this is one more question. Have, in all of your research and, you know, going and talking to different historical organizations, was there ever a discussion around like a partnership, or did any of them partner together, or were there any shared ideas or anything like that?
You know, that's a really interesting idea. The answer is no.
Well, we
Sure.
have the Association of Northern Front Range
Well,
Museums.
yes.
So
We
we
have
are a member
professional
of that,
organizations.
and we have a lot of connections with them. We do a little networking with them.
That's great.
So
Yeah.
there is,
That's great.
there is a bigger organization, but again, it's,
We go,
Time
you know, we go to
consuming.
seminars, we go
Sure.
to clinics,
Yeah.
but, you know, they
Oh, I
offer
know.
training,
I'm-
but that's spotty at best.
Sure,
We have
because
a
it's your own time
scholarship,
and,
you know,
Mhm.
for some of our members who are volunteers who can't afford to go,
Mhm.
but, you know, it's still spotty.
Got it. Yep. Well, I appreciate all that you're doing, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being here and for hanging in there at 9:37 PM.
Thank you. Councilor Larson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And a lot of what I was thinking has already been discussed, so we'll keep this as brief as I can, because this is a fairly big issue, and I know that when I first had discussions with you guys, with the Historical Society, it kind of opened my eyes into the risk that we were looking at that time of the Historical Society just going away.
it could.
I mean, that was, it seemed like a very real possibility at the time. So a lot of discussion since then, and I'm glad we got to the point where a plan was put together that took some of the original ideas that you guys had and molded it into something that sounds like it'll work very well. At any time, and I'm sure you're aware of the seriousness of adding an FTE to the city budget. That's a big deal. It really is. And the concern I have is that we can find a qualified and experienced person that has enough broad knowledge to manage cultural and art issues that are separate from museum and historical issues. As somebody with that qualifications, I think is probably going to be a rare bird indeed. But there apparently is some confidence that we can find somebody like that. The question then is, what does that position really look like? What are the expectations? Is that one of the roles that that person will play? Is it how to improve the museum and the historical society in general, to improve it to the point where it gets where it needs to be? And when there's improvements, there's going to be cost. And so how much is all of this going to cost? We probably won't know the answer to that for a couple of years down the road, but there will be additional expenses because we're talking about transforming the historical society and museum into something that it is not today.
Well, to answer that, it's a city park. It's under Parks and Recreation. We are granted keys to the kingdom, if you will, and we get to play there. And that's what it's been for decades now. But the bottom line is we all care. We want to have a wonderful product, and we want to get people there. Come and see what we have. It's so fabulous what we have, and it opens the eyes of people who, all they can see is the new turn lanes. They don't see what the history of Wheat Ridge and the rural, the truck farming that fed the miners. They think about the miners, but what do they eat? Well, the Wheat Ridge farmers. Hello. That's how they got their name. So yeah, we want to incorporate all of that. And to do that, we have this wonderful committee work very hard to see what other communities around us are doing. And the ones that are thriving are ones that have a city provided leadership.
Well, and Dan, I'd like to add, there's a real potential with better organization of additional revenue sources. So it's not like, we're going to ask and ask and ask. I mean, we listen to other presentations where, here's what we're planning. Here's how we're going to expand. Here's how we're going to have more people there. And here's what we're going to charge them. Not to overcharge them, but we can develop revenue sources given the leadership of somebody with some training.
And I find that to be very encouraging. So
Yeah.
Thank you for all this. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to support what you guys are asking.
Thank you.
Councilor Wood.
One thing, excuse me, one thing that occurs to me is in the city plan, and I am not going to be able to quote this verbatim by any means, but one of the things in the city plan, of course, it's looking toward the future, but it's preserving what makes Wheat Ridge what and who Wheat Ridge is. To me, this seems like a perfect focus for that. So anyway, thank you for the presentation. Okay, I just have one additional thing. Right now, the society has partnered with the Active Adult Center. We're doing a historic home tour that's scheduled for the 19th. At this point, it's free. No. What did I say? It's Saturday, September 19th, and it's free. Tickets through the Active Adult Center. Oh. It's a bus. It's a bus trip. Narrated.
All right, any other questions before we move on?
We are active, and we would like to stay active. And to do that, it would be wonderful to have somebody say, come on, folks, we're going to do this, and we're going to streamline that, and here's how we can do more with that, and let's apply for that grant, and here's how to do it. Holding my hand. I don't mind doing it, but I need somebody to hold my hand.
Thank you. Thank you to the members of our Historical Society. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 3. Mr. Goff, do you want to?
Yes, thank you. I'll invite poor Andrew up. Last on the agenda again. So please, everybody, thank Andrew for sticking out. I'll go through this real quickly. So tonight's discussion is intended to build on the conversation we had at last week's study session. At that meeting, you received presentations from Magellan Strategies on the second round of survey, community polling that we did. And then also you heard from Andrew from Piper Sandler regarding the city's long-term capital funding capacity. Since then, staff has continued working with Piper Sandler to refine the financing analysis to evaluate how we can maximize the community's investment if voters were to approve a dedicated sales tax. As a result, the information before you tonight is more comprehensive and provides a clearer picture of what is financially achievable over the next decade. I won't, to save some time, I'll skip some of this. You all know why we're here, which projects we're talking about. You remember the polling was fairly promising. One of the most significant updates since last week is the financing strategy, which Andrew will talk about. Rather than issuing all debt at one time, we're recommending to look at a phased approach with financings in 27, 31, and 2036. That strategy substantially increases the city's overall funding capacity while avoiding borrowing money years before projects are needed. Under a 1%, as an example, sales tax scenario, the city would generate approximately $236 million in total capital funding through certificates of participation, compared to approximately only $210,000 using traditional sales tax bond revenues. The phased approach allows us to fund our highest priority projects in the initial financing in 27. And those projects are the Civic Center, the outdoor pool, and the school properties. And so tonight, we're just looking for additional direction from council. If you want to move forward with putting a question on the ballot, do you support a 1% dedicated sales and use tax as preferred funding level? And if so, we would love to have direction to move forward to bring back an ordinance and final ballot question language for first reading on August 10th. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew because it is late and let him run through the additional scenarios he ran to get us to a higher capacity. And actually, these numbers do match much more closely to what you did receive in April. And I think that's what the numbers in April were intended to do. We were looking at, Lizzie also looked at more of this phased approach as well. But go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. No better time to talk about bonds than a Monday evening, so glad to be back here in front of the council. So as Patrick mentioned, we have sort of evolved our analysis a little bit, and so what I'm calling this is our capital funding scenarios. And so last time I was here a week ago, we talked about how much could the city issue if it were to do a single 30-year COP issuance or a single 30-year sales tax revenue bond issuance under these different sales tax rate scenarios. Today, we have something a little bit different. So building off of that, how can we leverage the growing sales tax revenues of the city, so beyond just capitalizing on 2027 through 2056, a typical 30-year financing? And how can we also capitalize on the revenues that are being generated that aren't being spent on debt service? So the first approach or strategy that we've added here is phased issuances. So we assume a 30-year issuance to occur in 2027, a 30-year issuance in 2031, and then another 30-year issuance in 2036. By doing so, we can capture revenues beyond the typical 30-year term length. So if we did our issuance in 27, that would extend to 2056 or 2057. But now with our last issuance in 2036, we can capitalize on revenues going out to 2066. So that brings in a little bit of extra capital funding capacity up front. The second strategy here is using excess revenue. So what I mean by that is when we run the COP scenario, we assume some sort of debt service coverage. So for every $1 of debt service that we project the city to spend, we assume that there's $1.2 of revenue to support that. So there's a 20-cent differential there. It's not disappearing. It can still be used for other things. So we're assuming that those excess revenues from 2027 through 2036 over the next 10 years would also be available to spend on capital projects. So with these two new strategies, what we prepared is a capital funding number for each scenario. That's captured in the table below here. So we break it down first by COPs, which, as I explained last week, have a higher capacity, and then sales tax revenue bonds at the bottom. From left to right, we go from a 1% sales and use tax rate scenario down to a 0.5%. So the largest being the COPs at a 1% sales and use tax. That generates $236 million of capital funding over the next 10 years based on today's interest rates. And then in the lowest scenario, sales tax revenue bonds at a 0.5% sales and use tax rate, that only generates about $104 million. So I'll go into more detail about the specific scenarios, COPs, sales tax revenue bonds, which projects can be included in the first issuance depending on which scenario. But any kind of high-level general questions to start? Perfect. So we're moving on here to COPs in detail. So our COP scenarios range in funding capacity from $114 million, that's the 0.5% sales and use tax, to $236 million, the 1% sales and use tax, based on today's rates. Again, this assumes the use of phase issuances. What I think is very important to note is that the city knows it has $127 million of capital projects that are time sensitive. So ones you want to complete as soon as possible after the new tax is passed, presumably. Only the 1% sales and use tax scenario and the 0.85 sales and use tax scenario would allow you to issue $127 million of COPs upfront. The other scenarios don't generate enough cash flow upfront to support all those projects in one financing. We also looked at this assuming today's interest rates plus 100 bips because we can't predict the market. We can't predict where interest rates are going to be when you want to issue. So
Explain what that is, the 100 bips.
yeah, absolutely. So if today's rates for your sales tax revenue bonds are 4.81%, 100 bip cushion means we're assuming 5.81%. So 1% addition there. And we do that to help you in your capital planning and make sure that, hey, if rates do move around, if they do go up, you know, another war or whatever, you still have the capacity to issue the debt you need to fund your projects. So assuming plus 100 basis points, only the 1% scenario still allows for a $127 million issuance. Now, do we think rates are going up 100 bips? It's hard to say. I would err on the side of probably not, but you don't want to bank on it probably. As I discussed last time, COPs do not require voter authorization, one of the greatest strengths of this financing instrument, but they will require collateral to secure any financing. This table at the bottom here is a very detailed breakdown of how we got the capital funding capacity. So that's highlighted in the yellow row, and the row right below the green row, that's how much COP capacity the city has based on those phased issuances. And then the other green row below that, excess revenue accrued, that's how much extra cash we're collecting from 2027 through 2036 that would presumably be available to fund capital projects in addition to those COP funds. And then the very bottom line at the table here is the same capital funding capacity number, but assuming plus 100 bips, so you get an idea of how much that is. Any questions on the COP sales tax rate scenarios?
Councilor Okada.
Thank you. The 100 basis points, that's only necessary, and this is me trying to make sure I'm understanding, that's only necessary for us to consider that in the exercise because of the phased issuance, right? Otherwise, we would be more confident about the rates that we're entering into because they're kind of the now rates as opposed to the distant future rates.
I think that's a very fair statement. What I will say is that in the current federal administration, the interest rate environment is very volatile. So if we were to plan the first issuance in 2027, let's just say 6 months from now, I would tell you that rates could move 100 basis points up or down. So that is true in terms of planning for an issuance, 9, 10 years from now. That's very important. But also still for the 2027 issuance, I think it's important to consider some kind of buffer there. What I will add to that is, rates could, of course, do the opposite and move lower, in which case this phased issuance approach would generate even more capacity for capital projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hulty.
So moving on here from COPs to sales tax revenue bonds, this is an identical analysis, except we're assuming sales tax revenue bonds, which, as you know, carry a lower capacity for the city to fund its capital projects, ranging from 104 million for the 0.5% scenario to 210 million at the 1% scenario. I won't go through this in as much detail, but essentially I think what's important to note is that none of these scenarios at current rates, assuming the structure, allow the city to borrow the full 127 million in 2027 for its time-sensitive projects. The reason sales tax revenue bonds carry a lower capacity and the reason we can't get to that 127 million is because the debt service coverage, so how much extra revenue you're proving on top of your debt service payment, is higher for sales tax revenue bonds. That's a stipulation that we have from credit rating agencies and investors who will actually purchase the bonds. I mentioned this last time, but sales tax revenue bonds do require voter authorization. So if that was the route chosen by council, then there would be a question on the ballot to approve any bond issuance as well. Any questions on the sales tax bonds? So moving on here to our sample cash flow, this is a lot of numbers, but I wanted to include this to give you an idea of how the cash flows actually work. So from left to right, we have our gross revenue. So this is how much projected revenue we're expecting to bring in. We're assuming that the city brings in from the new tax, assuming a 1% sales and use tax. Then these three columns afterwards, Series 2027, Series 2031, Series 2036, these are projected debt service schedules. So how much debt service you'd be paying on the COPs every single year. So here we only showed from 27 to 47. I didn't want to include more than 20 years because it's really a lot of information. And then to the right here, we have annual debt service, which sums up all of those series together. So that's how much debt service you're paying from the 1% tax every year. And then this debt service coverage number or column shows you the ratio we just discussed, how much revenue are you proving over your debt service. So the lowest, which I've highlighted in yellow here, is 1.2 times, and that occurs after the final phased issuance in 2036. And then the very right-hand column shows you the excess revenue. So how much revenue are we generating from the tax that's not being spent on debt service? We assume we could keep that revenue and that it could be used for capital projects. So I've highlighted to the right here from 2027 to 2036, that amounts to 35 million that could be also used for capital projects. Just to give you an idea of how the cash flows work here. Any questions on this page?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Forgot about these microphones. So where is that $35 million reflected in the previous table that we were looking at?
Yes, that's a great question. So I did not want to show the full cash flows here, but essentially in this bottom table, the second green row, excess revenue accrued, 2027 through 2036, that indicates how much excess revenue you're accruing in those years that can be used for capital projects.
Okay, so it's reflected in the totals in yellow.
Correct,
Yep.
correct.
But okay, great, thank you.
So that is all that we've prepared today. I did want to note as well that Patrick mentioned there was a prior number of 275 million of capital projects, and we took the liberty of backing into the sales tax rate that would be required to fund that. So for COPs at today's rates, it would be 1.15%. If we assume plus 100 bips, it's 1.3%. And the sales tax revenue bonds are higher than that, 1.3% at today's rates, 1.4% at plus 100 bips.
And that number again, to Councilmember Okada asked if we wanted to fund the whole package, the whole bucket of all 6 projects up front, that's what the rate would be.
Okay. Questions or discussion? Counselor Quinn?
So and I'm sorry if I'm a little tired. The wording on the ask of the voters, it says only be used for these items, and then you were talking about excess revenue later on down the road. Would
Yeah.
that be covered under this, Patrick, or how does that work?
In our thought, as we explained in the memo, you remember there's 6 priority projects. 4 of them were kind of one-time projects: the new civic center, the outdoor pool, the purchase of the park grounds, and what else was there? Yeah, parks and public works facilities. But then there were 2 ongoing revenue or expenditures that we were trying to fund: preventive street maintenance and then bike and ped network. So when we're saying excess revenues for other capital projects, our intent is that those funds would go into the capital budget to pay for those 2 items.
Okay.
Yep. That make sense?
Yes, yes, it does.
And it wouldn't be financed, that would be pay-as-you-go, so that 35 million, we would not be financing that, so there would not be debt service on that, it would be pay-as-you-go, depending on how much excess revenue there is every year.
So later on down the road, it's actually a better deal.
Yeah, yep.
Counselor Ohm?
Thank you, Mayor. So 4 projects is what we'd be looking at, and then the COP at the 1%.
Yeah, I believe, and it would probably actually only be 3 projects. In this scenario, we would not be able to fund fully the parks and public works shared facilities. I think this provides maybe some flexibility that there could be some excess revenues to phase that, maybe do some of it. But this scenario, with the 2027 issuance, it would generate the 127 million. It would cover, again, a new civic center, the outdoor pool, and some money for the parks, those 2 schools. The parks and then we'd see what happens with the economy and the rates, and see what's generated in the second issuance in 2031. And if there's excess revenues, this ballot question would allow money to go towards the parks and public works operations because of the last bullet item is modern police and city services facilities. And that would cover parks in my opinion. But again, the priority is those time-sensitive projects in the first issuance: civic center, pool, and the school properties.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Snell?
I just wanted to go back really quickly to what the discussion with Counselor Quinn. Hold on, I have a note here. So one of the things that we were just talking about is like the ongoing funding for infrastructure, and that's basically kind of like having a dedicated pool of money because we are going to continue to see issues with infrastructure, and also for bike and ped facilities because those are phased, correct?
Yes, again, the excess revenue that Andrew spoke about, which it's 35 million over the first 10 years, so 3.5 million a year. And that could be put towards in the CIP budget as an annual revenue source for proactive street maintenance and bike and ped network projects.
got it. And I know you just said that, and I
No,
apologize.
that's right.
for
No, I want,
making
it
you,
needs to be clear, yeah. So please keep
repeat it.
asking. Yep.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Yep.
Counselor Larson, did you have your hand up? No, Mayor Pro Tem Holding.
I'm really impressed with how sharp I'm still feeling. So, I don't know when that's going to end. It is after 10. So just for clarification, what I'm hearing is that at 1% and at the 7/8%, that if we did the COP issuance, we would be able to do the three major capital projects that have been identified, like with that first issuance, and that there would be anticipated additional revenue available for us to use towards the other two ongoing things. Is that correct? Like we're able to achieve both of those, and I guess I'm looking both at you and at you, Patrick.
Correct, yeah, from a financing perspective, yeah.
Okay. And so the 40 million-ish dollar difference between them over time translates into both that CIP amount. So some of that is in CIP. I'm seeing about 13 million of that is that sort of CIP overage that we're talking about. The difference between 23.7 million and 35 million is, so the difference between 1% and 7/8%.
When you say 7/8,
That's the
0.85.
0.85.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I'm a fractions girl. not a
Yeah,
percentage
that's
girl.
confusing folks, I
You may
think.
not know this
Yeah.
about me, but now you do. So the difference between that's about $40 million in COP capital funding capacity.
Correct.
We're very high
Yeah,
level. here.
Yeah.
And so, and that shows up about 13 or 12 million in that excess revenue line item, and then the rest of it is in that bonding capacity.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I don't want to talk too much more tonight, so I would just say I'm still where I was a week ago, and that I am more comfortable staying under 1%, given that we've got competing ballot initiatives, and I do think that especially in the Arvada Fire District, where they're going to be asking for a full percent, it would allow the total math to still stay under 2%. So my first choice is to move forward with the 0.85% COP option that really allows us to still get what we need. It might not be quite as much as we imagined at the beginning, but I think it sets us up more for success in the face of competing ballot initiatives. Thanks.
Counselor Okada?
To make sure that I understand the answer to Mayor Pro Tem's question, the 0.85% plus 100 basis points, assuming that happens 6 months from now, we wouldn't be able to afford those three capital projects.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Just to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly. I'll go on to say that I am in support of 0.85 COP. I agree in that space. It seems sensible to me. Thinking about the volatility of the market, I think we're going to be rolling dice anyway. I feel like there's an aspect of it that's important in that space, and us aiming for those now projects, I think, is a really critical thing. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for the clarifying questions on things that I didn't realize I wasn't understanding. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm just going to go ahead and give my opinion. Since the polling was basically no difference between 1% and anything below that, I think we should ask for the more money here. So I don't get a vote, but I'm just going to say that I lean towards the 1%. Counselor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I, too, am feeling more bullish about the 1%. There's no guarantees with the polling, but the other question I have on the polling, Patrick, is on the, I kind of got the impression that when we polled, there was strength in projects, so the number of projects made it stronger. And so whether it's the 0.85 or it's the 1%, my question is really geared towards what do we end up with if we just do those three projects? Where do we sit as far as, percentage of people that said yes versus more projects? in
Sure.
the- in the
Well, if you
bucket?
look at the ballot question though, as drafted, as recommended, it still includes everything. It doesn't specifically call out the Public Works and Parks facility because that was the lowest ranked project. But it would be eligible if there is excess money down the road in the second bond issuance or third. But everything is still in here that we hold on.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
It's just when they get done, I think is in different periods, right? We're going to focus on the most immediate needs and then focus in the second tranche would be the other needs. And I think the best part of this system is we talked a lot about at the workshop, I think, of having that ongoing annual revenue source, right, for preventive street maintenance and bike and ped network, and this provides that. It may not be at the exact numbers we were looking at, but it's a dedicated revenue source we don't have today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Quinn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I too, after Counselor Wood and I had our last outreach, I heard several people are just do the 1%. And so I too am in favor of the 1%, with all due respect, Mayor Pro Tem.
Counselor Snow.
Thank you, Mayor. It's feeling like we're fairly certain that our ratifier are also going to go through with their ask,
We
correct?
believe so, yeah, and I think Mayor Pro Tem was, I think, mentioned that you're the one who, yeah, probably at those rates. We
Yeah.
heard Arvado's 1 and West Metro probably 0.75.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I've given those, and that's a certain thing that's coming. I think we're hitting folks with a lot, and I would be more in favor of the 0.85. Just because that's asking a lot of folks. That's asking a lot, just with all of the financial language on the ballot. I would be more in favor of that.
Did you say 0.85?
0.85.
Okay.
Counselor Wood.
I would still be more in favor of the 1%. I wouldn't be unhappy if the consensus turns out to be 0.85. I think that would be fine. But I do think that this is an opportunity for the funding source to do maintenance and have more, to be able to do more with that if we go with the 1%. And I think that effectively to the person who is purchasing in our city, the difference between 0.85 and 1% or 1 cent is not a great amount. And I think that education is going to be necessary to make this a go anyway. So again, with all due respect to Mayor Pro Tem, my preference would be the 1%.
Counselor Larson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It seems like there are two questions for council tonight. One is, shall we proceed with the ballot language and getting ready to put this item up for, I guess, a final vote on whether we approve asking voters this fall? Question one. Question two is, what should the amount be? And I do tend to fall, if we're going to ask for a task increase, I think going for the full 1% makes the most sense.
Counselor Okada, do you want to weigh in before we ask for consensus then?
I think if I'm mathing in my head correctly, I think we're leaning to 1% on that. I'd be happy with either, but since we're leaning 1%, I want to head that way too.
Kathleen, I said was going to share maybe some information with you. Did she? She did not. Okay. I just wanted to leave that open in case she had some comments. Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Since everyone's paying all due respect, which is not necessary. We all have our opinions here. Yeah, I'm thinking on the campaign side and that people are going to do the quick math. And it's, at the end of the day, what it costs them when they go to the grocery store. But it's easy to say yes to 1%. And then when you see it could be 1% plus 1%, I would feel totally different if the fire departments were going for a half cent. It's just, there is something psychological about that math. And I think if we are matching Arvada's, but if we're slightly under Arvada, I think, I'm just kind of in the nuances, and I'm not trying to convince anyone. I think we've got the consensus, but it's going to be, a lot of education and outreach because, fire departments are well-funded and are going to be really pushing theirs as well. And so I think we just have to really be prepared for encouragement of the polling that we have, but a lot of people who were really excited when we were talking about what those investments would look like, recognizing that the fire departments are, for the most part, outside of our community was where that decision is going to be made. So I think it's doable. At the end of the day, it is a little bit splitting hairs, and it does make a difference in what we can get done. But the math piece, when all of a sudden in District 4, it's adding up to 2% when they're looking at it. I'm less concerned about the West Metro, which is the majority of the city. So just sharing my thought process, I'm happy to go with the consensus here tonight. So.
Any other discussion before we do that? Okay, seeing that, do we have a consensus to move forward with the ballot language as is and then move forward with a 1% sales tax? We do. Okay.
Okay, thank you. We, like I said, we'll bring back a draft or an ordinance on August 10th for first reading. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for hanging out all night.
I know. I was going to say, you guys aren't tired of seeing me yet?
You got to be tired of us, though, right? Yeah. Staff reports.
Nothing else.
Nothing tonight. Elected officials reports. Keep it brief. Councilor Snell.
We just have office hours tomorrow morning for District 1 at Ann's Pie Cafe on West 29th Avenue from 9 to 11.
Anybody else? Councilor Wood.
The pool, excuse me, the pool party was great. Very well done.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. Very quickly, there was a ribbon cutting last week at the Family Tree for G Fiber. You've probably seen it all around neighborhoods around Wheat Ridge. The fiber is going into the ground. And I did have the good fortune on Saturday to attend the Central City Opera. I've never been to the Central City Opera before, but the feature that night was Ballad of Baby Doe. And it's kind of funny that we heard from our historical society about how all of those miners up in Leadville were getting fed by farmers in Wheat Ridge. So the historical context was perfect. Most enjoyable show. Those are the people that sing at the opera. It's amazing. And then go to the Carnation Fest this weekend.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Fast, I would be remiss not to thank staff and Councilor Ohm for a really productive meeting with the Dover Street residents. This last Wednesday, we were able to reach not just a consensus, but an overwhelmingly strong consensus for each of the options that was presented to them. And we walked out of the room with people really thanking the city for listening to them and bringing forward a very, it's going to be disruptive but workable solution. So that's been quite a process, and staff and Councilor Ohm and I have really worked with those residents, and it paid off last Wednesday. So just thank you for everyone who was part of that.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you to everybody who participated in Engage Wheat Ridge Month, and our last walk was very productive. The pool party was amazing. Thank you to Parks and Rec for letting us use the pool and doing a great job with that. And the disco ball, those were amazing too. We had a great ribbon cutting the other day for a 2-year anniversary at Lakeside Spine and Injury Center. So thank you to Dr. Allen for having us there, and for everybody who was at Prost last night. The Prost grand opening was today, but the soft opening was last night, and pretty fantastic food and drink and a fantastic facility. So get out and see it. And if you can find it by Wheat Ridge. We will be 1 week from today for our next meeting on August 10th.